Hey guys, Nemo the editor here. I just wanted to say a belated Happy New Year from me. Hope you guys are enjoying the stories just as much as we are, producing and writing them. I wanted to ask you what stories you're most interested in hearing and what more we can do on this channel for you guys. That being said, if you haven't already, please subscribe and hit that notification button so you never miss a story. Comment down below your suggestions too. Now, enjoy the stories.
I did not expect my phone to ruin my life on a Thursday afternoon. I was half asleep on my bed, scrolling through old photos, trying to decide if I should delete the app or just stop opening it for a while. The app felt cursed. Every match felt fake. Everyone looked better than real life. I remember thinking I would give it one more chance before I deleted it. That was the moment everything locked into place, like a trap snapping shut way later than it should have. Her profile felt normal in a boring way. Blurry mirror pics, messy room in the background, captions that sounded like they were typed too fast. Nothing flashy. She looked like someone who actually lived in my city, not someone pretending to. We matched, and the messages came easy. Not funny, not deep, just easy. That felt rare. I did not overthink it. I never do. That is probably the problem. We talked for a few days. Late nights, dumb jokes, complaining about work and classes. She sent photos that felt casual. Selfies in bad lighting, random shots of her cat, a messy kitchen counter. I sent the same kind of stuff back. Nothing wild. Nothing I would ever think twice about. There was nothing secret or dark in it. Just two people killing time on their phones. At least, that is what I thought at the time. We met up on a Sunday evening. Not dinner, not a bar. Just walking around this weird outdoor shopping area by the highway. The kind with fake grass and string lights that always flicker. It felt public and safe. She seemed quieter in person, like she was holding back. I figured nerves. I was nervous too. I remember noticing how often she checked her phone and how she kept it angled away from me. I did not ask. I'd never liked being that guy. The date was fine. Not amazing, not terrible. We walked, sat, got snacks. No big sparks. No awkward disasters. Just that flat feeling where you know it is not going anywhere, but you are still polite about it. When we hugged goodbye, it felt forced, like both of us were already thinking about what excuse we would use later. I drove home and did not think about her again that night. The next day, she did not message. I did not either. I figured it would just fade out like most things do. I was already back on the app, already forgetting faces. 3 days later, while I was at work, my phone buzzed with a number I did not recognize. No name, just a local number. I ignored it. Then it buzzed again, then again. I stepped outside and answered, already annoyed. The voice on the other end was calm and official. They said they were from the police department and asked if I could confirm my name. My stomach dropped so fast I thought I was going to throw up right there behind the building. I had never had police call me before. Not for anything. They asked if I had time to come down to the station to answer some questions. They said it was about a restraining order case. They did not say my name was on it. They did not say it was against me. They just said my name came up. I drove there in a fog. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel, but I kept telling myself it had to be a mistake. Wrong person. Wrong number. Someone with the same name. That kind of thing happens, right? I kept running through my life trying to think of anything illegal or stupid I had ever done. Nothing matched. Nothing even came close. At the station, they took my phone. They asked me to sit in a small room with a table that felt way too big for the space. I stared at a stain on the wall that looked like it had been there forever. Minutes passed, maybe longer. Time felt fake in that room. Then they came back with a stack of papers and my phone placed carefully on top. They started explaining slowly like I was a kid. There was a woman who had filed for a restraining order against someone she claimed was harassing and stalking her. They showed me screenshots. My screenshots. Messages I read on my phone. Photos I recognized because I had taken them myself. My brain could not process it. My name was nowhere on the complaint. The restraining order was not against me. It was against someone else. An ex, but the evidence submitted included messages and images that had come from my phone. My number. My account. They asked if I recognized the person in the screenshots. I nodded. I felt sick. She had used our conversations as proof that this other guy was still contacting her through fake accounts and burner numbers. She had saved my messages, cropped them, removed my name, and claimed they were from him. She even submitted photos I sent her, saying he had sent them to show he was watching her. One of the photos was of a parking lot near her place that I sent because I thought the lighting looked cool. She told them it was proof he was following her. I tried to explain. I told him I met her once. I told them everything. How we matched, how we talked, how it ended quietly. I could tell they believed me, but belief did not erase the problem. My data was already part of an active legal case. They needed to verify everything. They needed my phone for longer. They needed statements. They needed timelines. Over the next week, my life turned into waiting rooms and emails. I had to hand over message logs. I had to explain why I took certain photos. I had to confirm times and locations. Every normal thing I did suddenly sounded creepy when read out loud by someone else. Even harmless jokes felt wrong when pulled out of context. I started questioning myself, wondering if I had missed signs, wondering if I had done something wrong without realizing it. I looked her up. Her profile was gone. Her social media wiped clean or locked down. I found one old account through a tagged photo from years ago. Different name, same face. I read comments from people asking if she was okay, if she was safe now. Posts about toxic relationships and healing. No mention of me. No mention of what she did. The worst part was the waiting. Not knowing if this would blow over or follow me forever. Not knowing if her ex would find out I was involved and decide I was part of it. The police told me not to contact her. I did not want to anyway. The thought of seeing her name made my chest tight. I started sleeping with my phone on silent. Every unknown number felt like a threat. Eventually, they cleared me, officially. They confirmed the messages came from my account and not his. The restraining order still went through anyway, based on other stuff. My involvement was labeled as unintentional. That word did not make me feel better. It just meant I was collateral. I got my phone back. Nothing looked different, but it felt wrong in my hand. Like it had been used for something bad while I was not looking. I deleted the app that night. Not dramatically. Just quietly. No big moment. Just gone. Sometimes I still think about how easy it was. How she took pieces of my normal life and rearranged them into something dangerous. How close I got to being dragged into something I had nothing to do with. I did not learn a lesson. I did not grow. I just got lucky, and that feels worse somehow. I used to think first dates were awkward in a boring way, like spilled drinks or weird pauses or pretending to like the same music. This one broke that idea in the first 5 minutes, before I'd even had time to feel nervous. It did not start scary. That is what messes with me the most. It started warm, almost sweet, and that made everything after feel way worse. I matched with him late one night when I could not sleep. His profile was simple. No try-hard lines. Just photos of him outside, some family-looking holiday pic, and one blurry shot that looked like it was taken by someone else. His messages were polite. Almost too polite. He typed full sentences and asked real questions. Not the fake ones. He remembered details. Where I live, what I studied, which bus I hated taking. It felt like effort. I liked that. After about a week, he asked to meet. Not in a rushy way. He suggested a small weekend market by the river. Food trucks, live music, lots of people. Public. Safe. I agreed because it felt low pressure. I told my friend where I was going just in case, like I always do, and left feeling normal. Not excited, not scared, just open. The market was busy and loud. Kids running around, dogs everywhere, that mix of food smells that all blend together. I spotted him near a stand selling handmade candles. He looked like his photos, which already put him above most people I had met from apps. He smiled when he saw me. It felt easy. We walked, got food, talked about random stuff. Nothing felt off. If anything, he seemed a little stiff, like he was trying hard not to mess up. About 20 minutes in, while we were standing near the river railing, two older people walked up to us. I noticed them because they were smiling too much, the kind of smile that feels practiced. The woman had that look adults get when they think they are being subtle but are not. They looked at me first, not him, and said my name. Not asking, stating it, but they already knew. I froze. My brain went blank in that instant way it does when something does not fit. I remember thinking maybe they were confusing me with someone else. Same hair, same jacket, but then the man thanked me. Not for coming out today, not for meeting his son, for finally agreeing to meet. It felt like the ground tilted. My date went pale, not shocked pale, caught pale, like a kid who got found out. The woman reached out and touched my arm like she had known me for years. She said things about how happy they were, how long they had been hoping for this, how much she talked about me. She mentioned my job, my area, things I had not told him in person yet. I laughed because I did not know what else to do. That fake laugh that comes out when your body is panicking but your mouth is trying to keep things normal. I looked at him, waiting for him to explain, to jump in, to fix it. He barely did. He introduced them as his parents, like this was all part of the plan, like it was cute and not terrifying. They stayed. That is the part that still makes my stomach tight. They did not just say hi and leave. They walked with us, asked me questions about my childhood, about my plans, about what kind of place I wanted to live in one day. They talked about future holidays like they were penciling me in. The whole time my date stayed quiet, smiling when they looked at him, watching me when they did not. I tried to pull away physically, slow my steps, create space, but the crowd kept pushing us together. The river on one side, the stalls on the other. I felt trapped in plain sight. I kept telling myself not to make a scene, not to be dramatic. This was public. They were being nice. No one around us thought anything was wrong. After what felt like forever, they finally left, hugging him, nodding at me like I had passed some test. When they walked away, I expected him to apologize, to explain, to admit this was weird. Instead, he acted relieved, like a weight had lifted, like the hard part was over. I asked him why they knew so much about me. He said he talked about me a lot. He said they were excited. He said they had been worried about him ending up alone. He said it like it was normal, like I should be flattered. My chest felt tight. Something about the way he said alone stuck with me. Heavy, loaded. I tried to reset the date. I really did. We got drinks, sat on a bench, watched the water. But I could not stop replaying their faces in my head. The way they said my name. The way they thanked me. Finally agreeing. That word felt wrong. Like I had been refusing something without knowing it. Then he started talking about things we had not talked about. Not on the app. Not in person. Things I had posted years ago on old accounts I barely use anymore. A city I once said I wanted to move to. A career path they joked about in a comment thread. He said he remembered because he pays attention, because he likes to know who someone really is. I told him I needed to go. I blamed a headache. He did not argue, but he walked into my car anyway. He stood too close while I unlocked it. Told me his parents were serious people, that they would not have come if they did not think this mattered. He said it softly like reassurance. It felt like pressure. I drove home shaking, not crying, just buzzing. My phone lit up almost immediately with messages from him, asking if I was okay, saying he hoped he did not scare me, saying his parents meant well. I did not answer. I went straight to my friend's place instead of my own. I did not want to be alone. That night I did something I rarely do. I searched myself. Deep, old usernames, forgotten posts, catch pages. I found traces of him, like some posts from years ago under different names. Comments that were gone now but still showed up in archived versions. He had been watching for a long time. Longer than we matched. Longer than I knew he existed. I read back through our messages with new eyes. The questions that felt thoughtful now felt strategic. The way he mirrored my interests. The way he avoided talking about his past. His family photo that suddenly felt staged. Nothing he said outright was threatening. That made it worse. It all fit just enough to make me doubt myself. The next day I blocked him. Everywhere. I thought that would be the end. It was not. His mother followed me on a different platform. No message. Just a follow. His father viewed my stories. Accounts with real names. No hiding. It felt like they were reminding me they were still there. I changed my settings. Locked things down. I stopped posting. Stopped going to the market by the river. I avoided places I had mentioned to him, even casually. I did not hear from them directly again, but the silence felt intentional, like a pause and not an ending. Weeks later, a package showed up at my door. No return address. Inside was a photo of that first date, taken from far away. All three of them were in it, me included. The back was blank. I threw it away without thinking. Then I dug it out of the trash and ripped it up. Then I wished I had kept it. I'd never reported it. I did not know how without sounding insane. Nothing illegal happened. Just a first date that turned into something else. Something I never agreed to but somehow got pulled into anyway. I still use dating apps sometimes. I swipe slower now. I trust less. Every time someone says their parents are excited to meet whoever they end up with, my stomach drops. I wonder if I am already part of the story I do not know about yet. The weird part is that nothing went wrong at first. That is what makes it hard to explain without sounding dramatic. There was no blow up, no creepy text, no moment where I thought I messed up. It started like any other normal stretch of life where days blur together, and nothing feels important until later, when someone pulls one small piece out and ruins the rest. I met her on an app I barely took seriously. I was bored during a slow week of work, swiping during lunch, killing time between tasks. Her profile was plain in a way that felt honest. No filters, no fake confidence. Just someone who looked tired but real. We talked for a bit, nothing intense. Mostly complaining about work, bad managers, office nonsense. She seemed to get it. That alone made me feel closer to her than most matches. We went out on a Wednesday night to this quiet place near the edge of downtown. Not a bar, not a club. More like a cafe that stayed open late and pretended to be cool. Cheap chairs, dim lights, scratched tables. We sat in the corner and talked for a few hours. I did most of the talking. She listened a lot. Nodded, remembered things. I remember thinking she was easy to talk to because she did not interrupt or turn everything back to herself. I told her stuff I usually do not tell people right away. Not deep secrets, just personal things. Things you only really share when you assume it is safe. How I hated my team lead at work because he micromanaged. How I felt stuck in my role. How I sometimes skipped company events because I felt watched there. I mentioned a complaint I had filed months ago that never went anywhere. I mentioned how hair felt fake to me, all smiles and checklists. She did not push. That is important. She did not ask for details. She just let me talk. That made it feel normal, like venting to someone outside my world. When the night ended, there was no awkward moment. We hugged. I went home. Nothing felt unfinished. We texted a little after that, but not much. Schedules did not line up. Replies slowed. There was no fight. It just faded. After about 2 weeks, I realized we had not talked at all. I shrugged it off. That happens all the time. I went back to focusing on work, deadlines, meetings, pretending to care. Then one Monday morning, my calendar updated with a meeting I did not schedule. Her. Private. 30 minutes. No explanation. My stomach dropped, but I told myself it was probably routine. Maybe paperwork. Maybe that old complaint resurfacing. I walked into the building feeling tense but not scared. I had no reason to be. The meeting room was small and too clean. Her sat across from me with that neutral face they trained for. They thanked me for coming. They said the meeting was about concerns raised regarding my behavior and mindset at work. Not actions. Mindset. That word stuck out. They started listing things that felt wrong immediately. They mentioned my discomfort at company events, my distrust of management, my frustration with being monitored. They brought up the complaint I filed months ago, including details I had only ever told one person outside her. They referenced how I felt about my team lead using phrases I recognized because I used them. Not similar. Exact. It felt like hearing my own thoughts played back by someone else. I sat there frozen. I could not understand how they knew. I had never put that stuff in writing. I never talked about it at work. I was careful. I asked where this information came from. They said an internal report raised red flags. They said they could not share the source but assured me it was credible. They told me they were terminating my position effective immediately, not for a single incident, but for a pattern of concerning behavior that suggested I was not aligned with company values. They handed me paperwork, severance info, instructions to return my badge. It felt unreal, like watching someone else get fired in a movie with bad pacing. I packed my desk in silence. No one looked at me. Security walked me out like I was a risk. I got into my car and just sat there. My hands were shaking. I kept replaying the meeting in my head, trying to find a leak, trying to find a mistake. Nothing added up. When I got home, I read through my messages with her, slowly, carefully. I noticed things I ignored before. How she asked where I worked, not just what I did. How she asked about her in a way that felt casual but specific. How she asked if I ever felt unsafe at work. I answered honestly because I thought she was just relating. I searched her name online. Nothing at first. Then I searched the company, then the city. Buried on a networking site was a profile photo that looked like her but older. Different hair, same face, same smile. The job title made my chest tighten. Her consultant. Previously contracted with my company, recently ended. It hit me all at once, not as a clean realization, but as a wave of nausea. The timing, the questions, the way her spoke like they had personal insight into my head. She was not just listening, she was collecting. I was not venting. I was reporting on myself without knowing it. I reached out to her once, just once. Not angry, not accusing, just asking if she worked in HR. The message went through but never got answered. A few hours later, her profile disappeared. Unmatched, gone like she was never there. I tried to fight the termination. I filed appeals. I asked for documentation. Everything came back vague and locked down. Internal sources. Confidential concerns. Nothing I could disprove. Nothing I could point to and say this is false. Because technically, the things they quoted were true. They were my thoughts, just never meant for them. Weeks passed. Savings drained. I started picking up temporary work. Nothing stable. Nothing with benefits. Every application asked why I left my last job. I struggled to explain without sounding unstable. I hated that she took something normal and turned it into a file. One night, while cleaning out my phone, I found a screenshot she had sent me early on. A photo of her desk. I noticed the corner of a document barely visible. Company logo. My company. I do not know how I missed it before. Maybe I did not want to see it. I never heard from her again. I never got closure. No apology. No confirmation. Just silence and paperwork and a gap in my resume that feels heavier than it should. I still think about how easy it was. How I talked because I thought I was outside the system for once. How she sat there nodding while my career slowly collapsed somewhere else. It did not feel like betrayal at the time. It felt like a normal night that just kept echoing. I did not Google myself because I was bored. I did it because something felt off in that quiet way that creeps up after a good day. The date itself had been normal enough that I almost forgot about it, which is why the feeling surprised me later that night when I was brushing my teeth and suddenly thought about how he watched me talk. Not in a creepy way at the time, more like he was studying for a test he already planned to take. I matched with him on a Sunday afternoon while laying on my floor, phone charging across the room, screen cracked just enough to blur faces. His profile said he was new to town. I always fall for that. New people feel temporary, like lower risk. He had a couple photos taken outside, one in a grocery store aisle, one with a bad haircut that looked recent. He messaged first and did not try too hard. That alone made me reply. We talked for about a week. Nothing intense. He asked about my job, my roommate, the coffee place I always post from. I asked about his move, his apartment hunt, what he missed about where he came from. He sent voice notes sometimes, not long, just enough to feel real. I liked that he sounded slightly awkward. It made him feel safe. We met at a small taco place by the train tracks. The kind of place that shakes when trains pass and smells like bird oil and citrus. I got there first. When he walked in, he smiled like he already recognized me in a way that made me feel briefly important. The date went fine. Not amazing. Not terrible. We ate, talked, laughed at the trains rattling the windows. I remember thinking he was quieter in person but still nice. There was one moment that stuck out. He asked about my last relationship. Not in a jealous way. More like he wanted a timeline. How long it lasted. How it ended. If I ever talked about it online. I answered honestly but vaguely. I do that now by default. He nodded a lot. Took mental notes. I thought nothing of it. When we left, we hugged. Nothing lingering. Nothing weird. I walked home feeling neutral, which is kind of my goal with first dates. No expectations. No stress. I texted my friend that it was fine and went back to my normal night. The next day, he messaged saying he had a good time. I replied the same. We talked a bit over the next few days, but the energy dropped fast. Replies got spaced out. No second date plans. It faded in that mutual way that feels clean. I did not feel rejected. I did not feel attached. I stopped thinking about him. 3 days later, a girl I barely knew viewed my story and followed me. Her profile had one photo and no posts. I ignored it. That happens sometimes. Later that night, another follow from a guy I did not recognize. Then a message request that just said, "Hey." I did not answer. My phone kept buzzing with small notifications that did not make sense. That was when I Googled myself. Not my full name at first, just my first name and the area. Nothing. Then my username, still nothing. Then my first name and the app name. That is when my stomach dropped. A post came up in a local dating warning group. Not a big site. One of those messy forums that look like they were built in a rush. My name was there, my age. Vague but accurate details about my job, my hair color, the coffee place by the tracks, the taco spot. The post described me as unstable, emotionally unpredictable, someone who overshared, changed moods fast, and might cause problems later. It said I talked too much about my ex. It said I gave mixed signals. It said I seemed normal at first, but had red flags that showed quickly if you paid attention. It warned people to be careful. It ended by saying trust your gut. The account that posted it had his username. Not similar, exact, the same one from the app. My hands went numb. I refreshed the page over and over like it might disappear if I looked again. It did not. There were comments, some agreeing, some asking for more details. One person said they thought they recognized me. Another said they matched with me once and got a weird vibe. I did not know these people. I had never talked to them. But there it was, growing like a story being built without me. I clicked his profile. He was active in multiple local groups, always warning, always vague but confident. Posts about different girls, different ages, different neighborhoods, always the same tone, calm, concerned, helpful. I read through them until my eyes hurt. Every post felt like a template. Meet once, observe, diagnose, report. I tried to message him. The app said the user was no longer available. Blocked, unmatched, gone. I felt stupid for expecting anything else. I sat on my bed refreshing the forum, watching new comments come in, watching my name turn into a thing. Over the next few days, things changed in small ways that added up. People unmatched me without replying. Conversations died after a few messages. Someone asked if we had met before when we had not. Another person made a joke about red flags. I stopped posting, stopped checking, stopped answering new messages. I reported the post. The site said it did not violate guidelines. It was an opinion, a personal account. I asked for it to be taken down. They asked for proof it was false. How do you prove you are not unstable? How do you prove tone and vibes are wrong? I reached out to a friend who knew about these groups. She told me they spread fast and stick forever. Even if the post goes down, screenshots stay. Names get shared in private chats. Once you are labeled, you carry it quietly. I tried to track him down on other platforms. His accounts were private or deleted. I found one old comment under a post about bad dates where he talked about protecting the community. The language was the same, careful, reasonable, impossible to argue with without sounding defensive. Weeks passed. I thought it would blow over. It did not. I matched with someone new who casually mentioned they had seen my name before, but could not place where. I laughed it off. My chest hurt for hours after. One night I found a new post, not naming me directly, but clearly about me, Same details, same warning, posted by a different account but using the same phrasing. I realized then that it was not about me at all. I was just material, content, a way for him to look like a protector by creating threats that did not exist. I never met him again. I never confronted him publicly. I changed my username. I changed my photos. I'd avoided places I knew he had mentioned. I felt like I was erasing myself in pieces I did not choose to give up. The post about me eventually dropped off the front page. Newer warnings replaced it. Different names. Same tone. But every now and then, someone still looks at me like they already decided something before I spoke. I still use apps, but slower, quieter. Every time someone asks a lot of questions on the first date, I feel my shoulders tense. I wonder how my answers will sound once they are told without me there. The night I realized something was wrong did not come with fear right away. It came with confusion, the kind that feels almost funny at first, like a coincidence you laugh about before it keeps happening. I was sitting on my bed, half watching videos, when my phone buzzed with a message from my friend Jake asking why someone was telling him personal stuff about me. I remember smiling, thinking it was a prank or some misunderstanding. That smile did not last long. I met her on an app I only kept because my friend said it was good for meeting normal people. Her profile looked relaxed. Messy room photos, random captions, nothing curated. She came off sarcastic but not mean, and she replied fast enough to feel interested without being intense. We joked about bad dates, bad bosses, and how everyone pretends to be cooler online. It felt easy. Too easy maybe, but I did not question it. We talked for about a week before meeting. During that time, I told her stuff I usually only tell friends. Not secrets, just details. How Jake always thinks he knows best. How my friend Sam has a habit of ditching plans. How my roommate and I barely talk anymore. These were things I mentioned casually, like flavor and not warnings. She laughed at the right times, remembered names, asked follow-up questions that felt normal. We met on a Friday evening at a food court inside this half-empty mall that never fully recovered after everything shut down years ago. Neon signs, echoing footsteps, closed stores with mannequins still dressed like it was another decade. It was quiet in a comforting way. We got food, sat near the windows, talked for hours. She listened more than she talked, which I liked. She asked about my friends again, how I met them, how long we had known each other. I thought she was just trying to understand my life. The date ended clean. No awkwardness, no pressure. We hugged and went our separate ways. She messaged later saying she had fun. I said the same. We did not plan a second date right away, but there was no tension, just space. 2 days later, Jake messaged me asking if I was okay. That was weird enough on its own. He said a girl had reached out to him asking about me, saying she wanted to make sure I was surrounded by good people. He said she mentioned my stress at work and my habit of shutting down when overwhelmed. Things I had told her, not him. Jake sounded confused, not angry. I told him I had gone on a date and brushed it off as her being curious. Then Sam messaged me that night. He sounded irritated. He said someone accused me of talking behind his back and painting him as unreliable. He said the girl mentioned specific moments, like when he canceled last minute on my birthday plans. Something I had told her offhand while laughing about it. Sam was not laughing. The next day, my roommate barely spoke to me. Later, I found out why. She had messaged him too. She framed it like concern, saying she noticed tension in our live situation and wanted to make sure he felt safe. She mentioned how I felt ignored at home, how I sometimes felt unwanted there. I had said that once, late at night, half joking. Now it was being used to stir something up. I started to feel sick. Not panicked yet, just heavy, like the air in my room was thicker than usual. I checked my phone. She had not messaged me since the date. Nothing suspicious. Nothing at all. Meanwhile, my friends were all separately dealing with versions of me they did not recognize. I tried to piece it together. She somehow found my friends. That alone was unsettling. My accounts were private. I rarely tagged people. But she had listened. Names, details, small stories. She had built a map without me noticing. Over the next few days, the messages kept spraying. A friend from work asked why someone warned them that I might be struggling emotionally and could lash out. Another friend asked why a stranger knew about a fight we had years ago. Every message was tailored. None of them sounded aggressive. They sounded caring, reasonable, concerned. That made it harder to defend myself without sounding unstable. I finally messaged her asking what was going on. She replied hours later, saying she just wanted to make sure I had support. She said she noticed I'd leaned on people a lot and thought it was important they understood me better. She said she did not mean to cause issues. Her tone was calm, controlled, like she had already decided how this would look. I told her to stop contacting my friends. She apologized, but also said it might already be out of her hands. That line stuck with me. Out of her hands. Like she had set something in motion and was now watching it play out. The fallout was slow but real. Jake started acting distant, second-guessing things I said. Sam stopped inviting me out. My roommate avoided being home when I was. No one yelled. No one accused me directly. It was worse than that. It was quiet mistrust, the kind that settles into everything. I tried explaining, but every explanation sounded defensive. Every denial sounded like avoidance. She had planted just enough truth in each message to make them believable. I had said those things. I had felt those feelings. She just rearranged them and sent them out like puzzle pieces to the wrong people. I found out later she had messaged some of them more than once, checking in, following up, adjusting her tone based on their responses. With one friend, she leaned into concern. With another, she leaned into warning. With another, she played neutral. It was like she was testing which version would stick best. I stopped using the app. I locked down my socials. I asked friends to block her, but some already had. Others said they never even saved her name. She disappeared as quietly as she arrived. The damage did not disappear with her. Friendships felt fragile. Conversations felt filtered. I caught myself wondering what version of me people believed now. The one they knew for years, or the one introduced by a stranger who knew exactly what to say. Weeks later, Jake admitted he almost believed her, not because he trusted her more than me, but because she sounded so sure, so specific. She did not insult me. She worried about me. That was harder to fight. I never fully got things back to how they were. Some friendships recovered. Others faded. No big blow-up. Just distance. Just gaps where things used to be easy. Sometimes I think about how fast it happened. One date, one conversation. A handful of stories I thought were safe. I still talk to people. I still date sometimes. But I watch myself now. I measure words I never measured before. She did not threaten me. She did not yell. She did not stalk me. She just talked to the right people in the right way and let the rest fall apart on its own. The first thing that tipped me off was how quiet my phone felt. Not the kind of quiet where no one is texting, but the kind where the phone itself feels disconnected, like it is pretending to work. I did not panic right away. I just noticed it in the background, the way you notice when a room gets colder or when a sound you expected never comes. I matched with him during a stretch where I promised myself I would be less paranoid. I'd gotten into the habit of doing safety check-ins with friends before and during dates, sharing locations, sending a quick emergency contact text just in case. Nothing dramatic, just routines. His profile did not set off alarms. Outdoors photos, average smile, nothing intense. He joked about hating loud places and liking quiet corners. That felt safe to me. We talked for a few days and kept it light. He asked about my classes, my schedule, where I liked to hang out when I wanted to be alone. I did not think much of it because I talk about that stuff with anyone. He suggested meeting at a late-night tea spot on the edge of town, near a small industrial area with warehouses and old train tracks. It sounded different, but not sketchy. I told my friend where I was going like I always do. The place itself was real, not fake or abandoned, just quiet. Dim lights, lots of empty tables, one person behind the counter reading on a tablet. I got there first and sent my usual text to my emergency contact saying where I was and who I was with. My phone buzzed like it sent, but when I checked the message, it still showed that spinning icon. I assumed the Wi-Fi was slow and put my phone away. He arrived right on time, looked like his photos, polite, calm, We ordered drinks and sat near the window. The conversation was fine. Not amazing. Not uncomfortable. He talked about random hobbies, about liking devices and tools, about how he enjoyed figuring out how systems worked. I nodded along, only half listening because I kept glancing at my phone. I tried sending another message under the table. Same thing. Spinning. No sent confirmation. I checked my signal. 0 bars. That was weird but not impossible. The area was kind of remote. I turned on Wi-Fi. It connected but nothing loaded. I told myself to relax. I did not want to be the person who freaks out over nothing. Still, my chest felt tight. I excused myself to the restroom and tried again. Nothing. No messages sending. No pages loading. My phone acted like it was online while doing absolutely nothing. I restarted it. Same result. When I came back to the table, he asked if everything was okay. I said yes because that is what you say when you do not want to explain fear without proof. The rest of the date felt stretched. Time moved slow. He kept the conversation going, asking questions that felt normal but timed. Where I live, how often I came to this side of town, whether I usually had signal issues. I laughed it off. I noticed his bag on the floor by his chair. Not a backpack. More like a compact case, hard-sided. It hummed softly, so low I thought it was the building at first. I tried to subtly test my phone again. I opened a notes app and typed out a message I planned to send the second I had signal. I turned it on airplane mode and off again. Nothing changed. The humming continued. I started watching his movements. He barely touched the bag but kept it close, like a foot resting against it. I told myself I was being dramatic, that there was probably a tower issue, that the building had thick walls. But the longer it went on, the more intentional it felt. I tried standing near the door. No change. I went back to the table. Still nothing. Eventually, I said I needed to leave. I blamed an early morning. He did not argue. He seemed calm in a way that annoyed me. We walked outside. The night air felt heavier than usual. I took a few steps away from him and checked my phone again. Still nothing. No bars. No messages going through. I could feel panic creeping in, but I forced myself to stay steady. We said goodbye. Nothing weird. Nothing dramatic. I got into my car and drove until I hit the main road. As soon as I did, my phone exploded with notifications. Messages sending all at once. Missed alerts. My emergency contact text went through with a timestamp from nearly an hour earlier. I pulled over and just sat there shaking. I told my friend everything. We laughed it off at first, calling it a coincidence. But it did not sit right with me. The next day I searched the area online. Forums, maps, people talking about dead zones. Nothing came up. Coverage maps showed full service. I started searching for devices instead. Legal signal blockers, obscure hardware, things used for privacy or testing. I fell down a rabbit hole of technical posts and niche blogs. That is when I found it. A device small enough to fit in a case, designed to disrupt nearby signals in a limited range without broadcasting illegally. Marketed for conference rooms, anti-tracking setups, personal privacy. Legal because it did not technically jam public networks, just overwhelmed local receivers. I looked up images. My stomach dropped. The device looked exactly like the shape of his bag. Same vents, same size. Same low hum mentioned in reviews. I went back through our messages. The way he suggested that location. The way he asked about my routines. The way he talked about systems and tools. None of it sounded creepy on its own. Together, it felt planned. I considered reporting it. I did not know who to report it to. The device was legal. Nothing happened to me. No threats, no force. Just isolation. Intentional silence. Something that could have gone worse if I had stayed longer. I checked the app. His profile was gone. Unmatched. Deleted. Like he had already finished whatever he set out to do. I searched his username elsewhere. Nothing. Clean. I drove past that T-spot once weeks later in daylight. It looked normal. Boring even. Cars parked outside. People walking in and out. No sign of anything wrong. That almost made it worse. Now, every time my phone lags, my body reacts before my brain does. I check Signal constantly. I bring backup plans. I tell people where I am even when I feel silly doing it. I stopped trusting quiet places the same way. Nothing happened that night that would make a good warning story. No big moment. No escape scene. Just a slow realization that someone had control over my ability to reach anyone else and chose to use it without telling me. The first thing I noticed was how official she sounded for someone I met on an app. Not smart official or confident official, but stiff, like she was filling out a form that only she could see. I brushed it off at first because everyone has their quirks, and I was distracted by bigger stuff anyway. I was trying to find a place to live before my lease ended, and my brain was already running on low battery. We matched during a week where I was touring apartments every other day. Her profile was plain. No weird vibes. Her photos looked like they were taken on different phones over a few years, which I weirdly trusted more than polished stuff. She messaged me first and asked how my day was going, then immediately followed it with a question about what part of town I was hoping to live in long term. It felt like skipping ahead, but I answered because it was already on my mind. Our messages stayed polite, almost too polite. She never used slang, never sent emojis. Her sentences were clean and evenly spaced, like she proofread them before hitting send. She asked about my job, my schedule, my sleep habits. Not in a flirty way, more like she was checking boxes. I joked once about it feeling like an interview, and she laughed it off by saying she liked clarity. We met at a quiet bakery near a bus loop. Lots of windows, pale walls, not many people. It felt neutral, safe. She showed up early and already had her drink. She smiled but did not relax. The conversation stayed surface level at first, then slowly drifted into personal stuff without me noticing the shift. She asked about my work history. Not just what I did, but how long I stayed at places and why I left. She asked how I handled stress. What I did when plans changed last minute. Whether I ever missed payments on anything important. The questions were spaced out enough that I did not feel interrogated, just guided. I answered honestly. I said I moved jobs once because of burnout. I said I sometimes shut down when overwhelmed. I said money was tight during school but stable now. None of it felt dramatic, just facts about being a person in their 20s trying to keep things together. I noticed she would pause after my answers and look down at her phone, typing briefly, then locking it again. I assumed she was responding to a friend or making a note about something unrelated. I did not want to be rude by staring. The date ended fine. No spark, but no red flags either. We hugged awkwardly and went our separate ways. She messaged later thanking me for my time. Time. Not tonight. Not hanging out. Time. I did not think much of it then. Over the next few days, we did not talk much. A couple polite check-ins, nothing flirty. I was more focused on housing. I had found a place I really liked. Older building, decent rent, close to work. The application went smoothly. Credit check passed. References responded. The landlord said things looked good and I should hear back soon. Then the email came, short, cold. It said my application was denied due to risk assessment results. No explanation. Just that phrase. Risk assessment. I stared at it for a long time, trying to figure out what that even meant in a housing context. I emailed back asking for clarification. They responded saying they use a third-party screening service that flags potential concerns. They could not override it. They could not give details. Decision final. I panicked. I checked my credit. Clean. I checked my background. Nothing. I called the screening company and got nowhere. Everything was automated. Vague. Closed. That night, it read back through my messages with her. Slowly. Line by line. The way she asked about missed payments. The way she asked about routines. The way she asked how I reacted to stress. It all looked different now. Not like curiosity, like assessment. I Googled the screening service name. Buried in a forum thread about rental denials was a comment mentioning supplementary behavioral data. Things pulled from public records, online activity, and reported interactions. Someone mentioned that certain community partners could submit observational notes. My chest tightened. I searched her name. Not much came up at first. Then I found a profile on a professional site with a similar photo. Same smile. Different haircut. The job title made my stomach drop. Housing compliance analyst. Previously contracted with regional screening vendors. I felt stupid, not betrayed exactly, more like exposed. I had walked into a situation thinking it was personal when it was procedural. I was David to her, a sample, something to test the system on. I reached out to her asking if she worked in housing. She replied hours later saying she did consulting work sometimes and hoped my apartment search was going well. The way she phrased it made my skin crawl, like she already knew the answer. I asked directly if she had submitted information about me. She did not deny it. She said she took notes on dates to help herself understand people better. She said she believed in protecting communities and making sure people ended up in environments suited to them. She said she never thought it would affect me negatively. Negatively, like losing housing was just an unfortunate side effect. I stopped responding. I did not know what else to say without losing it. I tried applying to other places. 2 more denials. Same phrasing. Same risk language. I realized whatever flag she put on me was now following me, invisible but active. I called friends asking if they could co-sign. One said yes. One hesitated. One asked what I meant by risk. I could hear doubt creeping in. That hurt more than the denials. Eventually, I found a short-term sublet through a friend of a friend. Not ideal, not stable, but it worked. I moved my stuff and feeling like I was sneaking instead of settling. Weeks later, I got another message from her. She said she hoped I'd landed somewhere that supported my needs. That phrase stuck with me, supported my needs. Like she had decided what those were based on one afternoon in a coffee. I never reported her. I did not know how. Everything she did lived in gray space. Notes, assessments, opinions framed as care. Nothing illegal, just powerful. I still think about how easily it happened. How I answered questions because they were asked calmly. How my honesty turned into a score I could not see or fix. How one date quietly followed me into paperwork and closed doors. I do not go on dates while housing hunting anymore. I do not answer personal questions until I know why they are being asked. Sometimes that makes things awkward. I do not care. The scariest part was not losing the apartment. It was realizing how many systems exist that listen without telling you, and how close they can get through something as simple as a first date. I noticed it the same way you notice a room emptying out while you are still talking. Nothing loud, nothing obvious, just a sudden quiet that feels personal. One day my phone felt busy and alive, and the next it felt like I had been muted without anyone telling me. I had been using dating apps long enough to know their moods. Some weeks were dry, some weeks were weirdly good. I knew when I changed photos or tweaked a bio, things would shift a little. But this was different. This was like someone reached inside the app and turned a knob I did not know existed. It started after I rejected him. We matched on a Tuesday night. His profile was confident but not flashy. Good photos, clean bio, mentioned his job in a vague tech way. Nothing screamed red flag. He messaged first and kept things respectful. He asked about my work, my hobbies, the usual. He also asked about how long I had been on the app, whether I liked it, whether I felt like it treated people fairly. I thought it was just conversation. We met at a casual rooftop spot above a parking garage. String lights, plastic chairs, wind that messed up your hair no matter what. The date was fine. Not bad, not amazing. He talked a lot about systems and trends, about how people are ranked everywhere whether they know it or not. He said it like it was fascinating, not scary. I nodded along, half listening, more focused on my drink and the city lights. There was nothing wrong with him. That is important. He was polite, calm, maybe a little intense, but not in a way that felt dangerous. I just did not feel it. When the date ended, he walked me to my car and thanked me for meeting. The next day, he messaged asking to go out again. I thought about it and said no, but kindly. I said I did not feel a connection and wished him well. He replied with a short message saying he understood and appreciated the honesty. That was it. No anger. No weird follow-up. Nothing. 2 days later, my matches slowed down. Not a little, a lot. Conversations that were active suddenly stopped replying. New matches barely appeared. When they did, they disappeared within hours. I had assumed it was just a slump. It happens. Then I opened the app one morning and noticed my profile views were way down. There was a little stat section that showed activity trends. Mine had dropped off a cliff. I checked my settings. Nothing changed. My photos were still there. My account was active, but it felt like I was invisible. I joked to a friend that I must have been shadow banned. She laughed, but then asked what that even meant. I tried to explain it like I half understood it myself. The idea that an app does not kick you off, it just quietly buries you. Still there, just unseen. A few days later, something else happened. I ran into a guy at a coffee place who I had matched with weeks ago but never met. He recognized me. I recognized him. We chatted briefly. He seemed awkward. Later that night, I checked the app. Our match was gone, like it never existed. I started asking around, casually, other friends who'd used the same app. One mentioned she had heard rumors about internal scoring, desirability scores, behavior flags, how rejecting certain users too often could affect visibility. It sounded like internet nonsense, but it stuck with me. Then someone sent me a screenshot. It was from a local group chat that shared dating app gossip. Not official, just people talking. Someone had posted about me, not by name, but with enough details to be obvious. Age range, job type, neighborhood, photos described. The post said I was difficult, played games, rejected people for shallow reasons. It warned others not to waste time. The account that posted it used his first name and a generic avatar. I stared at it until my eyes hurt. The tone was calm, factual, not angry like a report. More comments followed, some agreeing, some saying they matched with someone similar. One person said they heard she was flagged by the app. Another said she probably had a low score. Score, that word again. I went back to his profile screenshots I had saved when we first matched. One photo showed a company logo on his laptop in the background. I had ignored it before. Now I searched it. The company was real. A data brokerage. The kind that sells behavioral insights and risk profiles. The kind that works with apps without being visible to users. I felt sick. Not because I had proof, but because it suddenly all lined up too neatly. The questions he asked. How long I had been on the app. How often I rejected people. Whether I felt like the system was fair. The way he reacted so calmly to rejection. Like it was expected, like it was logged. Over the next week, things got worse. I opened the app less because it was depressing, but when I did, it was empty. No new matches, no likes. My friend, who lived 2 blocks away and had similar photos and preferences, was getting flooded. Same app, same city, completely different reality. Then rumors reached offline spaces. A guy I met through friends asked me why people said I was cold. Another asked why he heard I ghosted a lot. None of it was true, but it was close enough to hurt. It felt like my personality had been summarized by someone else and passed around. I contacted the app support. Generic responses. No issues detected. Engagement fluctuates. Keep your profile fresh. Nothing actionable. Nothing human. I tried starting over. Deleted my account. Waited, made a new one with different photos and a slightly different bio. For one day it worked. Matches came in like normal. Then, just as suddenly, it dropped again, like a switch flipped. That was when I knew it was not just the app. It was me as data. Something attached to my device, my number, my behavior. A trail I could not erase with a new profile. Weeks passed. I stopped using apps altogether. I told myself I needed a break, but really I felt locked out. Like a door had closed quietly behind me and no one would admit it existed. One night I saw him again, not in person. His profile popped up on a different app I barely used. Same photos, same calm smile, new bio. When I checked my visibility stats on that app later, they dropped too. I did not message him. I did not block him. I just stared at the screen and felt small. Nothing illegal happened. No threats, no messages, just a slow erasing. A sense that rejecting one person had consequences far beyond that moment. That somewhere, my no had been converted into a metric. I still date sometimes, through friends, through chance. But I never feel fully present on apps anymore. It feels like being on a stage where the lights are off and the audience is still judging. I do not know exactly what he did. I just know that after him, the system stopped seeing me the same way. And once that happens, there is no appeal button. I did not realize I was being graded until I saw my own face on someone else's screen. Before that, it just felt like a slightly uncomfortable date that I kept trying to smooth over because that is what I always do. I thought awkwardness was something to push through, not something being manufactured on purpose. I matched with her on a night when I was half watching videos and half thinking about deleting the app again. Her profile had a lot of personality packed into it. Messy humor, random photos, captions that felt impulsive. She came off chaotic in a fun way, like someone who did not overthink things. That felt refreshing after a string of stiff conversations with people who treated dating like a checklist. She messaged first and kept things playful. Lots of jokes, sudden topic switches, sending photos of random things she was doing. It felt spontaneous. She asked how I handled awkward moments, like when plans went wrong or when people embarrassed themselves. I said I usually tried to lighten things up and move past it. She reacted like that was interesting, not reassuring. I did not think much of it. We decided to meet at a casual diner near a strip of thrift stores. Old booths, sticky menus, the kind of place where nothing has changed in years. She suggested it because she said she liked places where weird stuff happened naturally. I laughed and agreed. I told my friend where I was going, grabbed my keys, and went. From the moment she showed up, things felt slightly off, but not enough to leave. She arrived late without apologizing and slid into the booth across from me like she had known me for years. She stared at me for a second too long before smiling. I told myself she was just intense. The first awkward moment came fast. She knocked over her drink reaching for her phone. It spilled across the table and onto my arm. I jumped back and grabbed napkins, telling her it was fine, trying to laugh it off. She watched me closely while I cleaned it up, not helping, just observing. I noticed her phone was propped against the napkin holder, camera facing out. I assumed it was accidental. Then she asked a question that felt designed to trip me. Not personal in a normal way, but sharp. Something about how I would react if someone accused me of being rude in public. I answered honestly, saying I would probably apologize even if I did not mean to, just to keep things calm. She nodded slowly and typed something on her phone. More things kept happening. She interrupted the server mid-sentence and then looked at me to see how I reacted. She dropped her fork on the floor and waited instead of picking it up. She made a comment about the place being kind of gross and then watched my face like she was waiting for a specific expression. Every time, I tried to stay polite, to diffuse, to not make it worse. It felt like walking through a maze where the walls moved. At one point, she said she forgot her wallet and asked how I felt about covering the bill. Not in a shy way, in a testing way. I said it was fine, even though it annoyed me a little. She smiled and typed again. The phone was still angled just enough that I could see the screen light up. I started to feel like I was performing without knowing the script. My body felt tense. I noticed myself choosing words carefully, controlling my reactions, wondering what the right response was. The date stopped feeling like a date and started feeling like a job interview with no rules. When we left, she insisted on walking through a crowded area even though it was slower. She stopped suddenly in front of people to see how I would handle it. I apologized to strangers. She watched. She asked how I felt about confrontation. I answered carefully. My chest felt tight. We hugged goodbye in a stiff way and went our separate directions. I got home feeling drained, not angry, just off. I told myself she was just socially weird and that was that. I did not message her again. She did not message me either. 3 days later, my friend sent me a link with no explanation. It led to a short video on a social platform I barely used. The title text said green flag or red flag. The clip showed a guy sitting in a diner booth, half turned toward the camera, reacting to something off screen. It took a second for my brain to catch up. Then I realized it was me. The angle was subtle. The camera was hidden just enough that you would not notice unless you knew where to look. The clip cut quickly between moments. Me wiping my arm. Me laughing awkwardly. Me pausing before answering a question. Text overlays labeled each moment. Polite reaction. Conflict avoidant. People pleaser. My hands went numb. I scrolled. There were more clips, different angles, different moments from the same night, each one framed like a test. The caption talked about running social experiments on first dates to see real reactions. The comments were brutal. Strangers debating my personality like I was a character. Some said green flag because I stayed calm. Others said red flag because I did not set boundaries. Hundreds of people weighing in on who they thought I was based on seconds of footage. My face was not blurred. My voice was not distorted. My name was not included, but anyone who knew me could recognize me instantly. My friend did. That is why he sent it. I watched the clips again, noticing details I missed before. The way her phone was always placed just right. The way she escalated awkwardness and then leaned back. The way she never looked surprised by anything. It was all deliberate. I checked her profile. It was full of similar content. Different guys, different locations, same format. Green flag or red flag. Awkward situations clearly staged. Dropping things. Saying strange comments. Pushing boundaries just enough to get a reaction. The comments treated it like entertainment, like a game. I reported the videos. The platform responded saying the content did not violate guidelines. Filmed in public. Reactions only. No private information shared. Educational. That word made me laugh out loud in a bad way. I messaged her asking her to take them down. She responded hours later saying she did not see the issue since no one knew who I was. She said it was about behavior patterns, not individuals. She said people should be more aware that their actions are always being observed. Observed? That word stuck with me. I asked why she did not tell me she was recording. She said that would defeat the purpose. She said people act differently when they know they are being watched. She said she was helping others avoid bad partners. She never apologized. The videos kept spreading. Someone stitched them. Someone made jokes. Someone analyzed my posture. A coworker mentioned seeing something that looked like me online. I laughed it off, but my face burned. I stopped going to that area. I stopped using the app. I locked down my socials. I started second-guessing how I act in public, wondering who else might be filming. Every awkward moment felt heavier, like it could be clipped and judged later. Weeks passed, and the videos slowly stopped appearing on my feed, but I knew they were still out there. Archived. Saved. Shared. I could not pull them back. I learned later that she taught workshops about dating safety, that she framed herself as someone helping people spot warning signs early. My reactions became examples, not of danger, but of weakness, of being too accommodating, too quiet, too careful. Nothing illegal happened. She did not threaten me. She did not lie. She just turned me into content without my consent and let the internet decide what kind of person I was. I still go on dates sometimes, but I notice everything now. Where phones are placed, how often someone checks their screen, whether awkward moments feel organic or pushed. I hate that part of myself, but it is there now. The worst part is knowing that on that night, I thought it was just being nice. I thought I was doing the right thing by staying calm and polite. I did not know I was taking a test I never agreed to, one that would keep playing long after I left the diner. I used to brag about my online privacy the way other people brag about fitness streaks. Not loudly, not to strangers, but in that quiet, confident way where you feel untouchable. I never reused usernames, never connected accounts, never posted my face on anything tied to my name. I had layers, burners, locked profiles. I felt smart about it, like it was ahead of something most people did not even think about. That confidence cracked in a booth at a noodle place on a rainy Thursday night. I mashed with him during a stretch where I felt bored but safe. I had just finished a project and my brain needed noise. His profile looked normal. Nothing flashy. No intense bio. No edgy jokes. Just a guy who said he liked long walks and old movies and hated social media. That last part made me feel weirdly relaxed. People who say that usually mean they do not dig too deep. We talked for a few days. He was calm, not overly curious. He did not ask for my socials, which I appreciated. I never linked them anyway. That is rule one for me. If someone asks too early, I back off. He did not. We kept it light. He mentioned liking quiet places. I suggested a small noodle spot tucked behind a row of shops. Not trendy, not loud, the kind of place you forget exists. I told my friend where I was going, set my usual check-in, and left feeling fine. The place was almost empty. Rain tapping the windows, soft music, one other table occupied by two people who looked like they were breaking up or studying. He was already there when I arrived, sitting with his phone face down. He smiled and stood up like he had practiced it. I remember thinking that was kind of sweet. The conversation started normal. Work, food, random stuff. He asked what I liked doing when I was alone. I said I read a lot and wrote sometimes. That was true but vague. He nodded like he expected that answer. Then he referenced a short post I once wrote about being unable to sleep during storms. Not the idea, the wording. The exact phrasing I used years ago on a small account with no name attached. My stomach dropped, but I told myself it was a coincidence. Lots of people talk about storms and sleep. I brushed it off and changed the subject. He followed smoothly. Talked about noodles. Asked what kind I usually ordered. I relaxed a little. Then he mentioned a photo I posted once of a half-finished notebook and a chipped mug. He described the mug without seeing it. Said it looked familiar. I felt heat rush to my face. That photo existed on an account I never shared with anyone in real life. Not friends, not family. It was tied to an email I barely used. The username was random letters. No face. No location. I laughed it off. Said lots of mugs looked the same. He smiled but did not correct me. He just kept eating like this was casual. The rest of the date felt like walking on thin ice. Every time he spoke, I listened for references. He mentioned a book I had reviewed under a different name. He referenced a playlist theme I once posted about in a locked account. Nothing direct. Nothing obvious. Just enough detail to feel intentional. I checked my phone under the table, scrolling through my apps, making sure nothing was logged in that should not be. Everything looked normal. No open tabs. No weird permissions. I had not shared my screen. I had not clicked strange links. I had not told him my last name. I started to feel exposed in a way I had never felt before, like my skin was thin and transparent and you could see through it while pretending not to. I ended the date early, blaming a headache. He did not push. He paid without comment, walked me outside into the rain. We said goodbye. Nothing weird. Nothing dramatic. I got home fast and locked my door even though that made no sense. That night I went into full spiral mode. I opened every account I had, checked logins, checked security alerts. Nothing. I searched my usernames. Nothing new. I searched his username. Common. Useless. I started mapping it out. What he referenced came from 3 different platforms. None of them linked. Different emails. Different usernames. Different posting styles. The only thing they shared was timing. All were active during the same years. All posted late at night. All had similar writing rhythm. I had always known that patterns mattered more than names, but knowing it and feeling it are different things. The next day, he messaged saying he had a good time. I replied politely and said I did not feel a connection. I did not mention the references. I did not want to show my hand. He responded calmly, wished me well, and that was it. Or so I thought. 2 days later, I noticed something strange. One of my smaller accounts had a new follower. No posts. No name. Just a blank profile. I blocked it. Then another appeared on a different account. Same blank look. Different handle. I blocked that too. I started getting recommended posts that felt too on the nose. Content related to things I only talked about on private accounts. It could have been algorithm coincidence, but it felt louder now. Like the volume was turned up. I went back through our chat, reading it slowly. I noticed how he avoided giving details about himself. No job specifics. No hometown stories. Nothing that could be traced. All intake, no output. I searched his photos using reverse image tools. Nothing obvious. But one photo led me to a forum post where the background matched. Not the person, the place. Same wall art. Same lamp. The post was about data aggregation. About stitching online identities together using writing style and activity timing. The author talked about it like a puzzle. My chest tightened. I did not know if it was him, but the overlap felt too close. I remembered something he said during the date about hating social media, how he said it was loud and inefficient, how real information lived in quieter places. I had nodded, thinking he meant forums or old blogs. Now it felt different. I locked everything down even more, changed passwords, rotated emails, scrubbed old posts. It felt pointless, like closing doors in a house where someone already had the floor plan. A week later, I got a message from an account I did not recognize. It referenced a line I wrote years ago about feeling safest when anonymous. Not quoting it, paraphrasing it. I blocked it immediately, hands shaking. Nothing else happened. No threats. No stalking in the obvious sense. Just the awareness that someone had seen me in pieces I thought were invisible and then sat across from me like it was normal. I never proved it was him. I never confronted him. I never reported anything. What would I even say? Someone knew things. Someone connected dots. None of it illegal. All of it unsettling. I still care about privacy. I still use burners. But the confidence is gone. I no longer feel clever about it. I feel cautious. I think about how patterns leak even when names do not. How tone and timing and habits can become fingerprints. Sometimes I wonder if he does this often. If he sits across from people and drops little references just to watch their faces change. If it is a game. If it is work. If it is curiosity without empathy. The date itself was not bad. That is the worst part. It was calm, polite, forgettable on the surface. If I did not know what I know, I would have told friends it just did not click. But now, every time someone says something a little too specific, my body reacts before my brain does. I feel that same drop in my stomach, that same sense of being mapped. I did not lose anything concrete, no account stolen, no damage I can point to. Just a feeling that my walls were thinner than I thought, and that someone noticed. I always thought the worst thing that could happen after a bad date was being ghosted or maybe seeing the person again somewhere awkward. I'd never imagined my apartment manager would be the one calling me, using that slow, careful voice people use when they already think you did something wrong. The date itself did not feel dangerous. That is what keeps replaying in my head. If there had been yelling or threats or even a clear argument, I could wrap my brain around it. Instead, it was quiet, normal, almost boring, which made what came after feel unreal, like my life slipped sideways without asking. I matched with her during a week where I was mostly staying home. Work was slow, friends were busy, and my apartment felt smaller every day. Her profile looked chill, not polished, not influencer style. Just selfies, some messy room shots, and captions that sounded like she typed without editing. She joked about being awkward on first dates, which felt relatable. We talked for a few days, nothing deep. Jokes, random complaints, talking about shows we both half watched. She lived across town and suggested we meet for coffee. When the place she picked was unexpectedly closed, I suggested just grabbing takeout and hanging out at my place for a bit. I hesitated before sending that message, but she agreed fast and said she preferred quiet anyway. I cleaned my apartment like I always do when someone is coming over. Nothing intense, just making sure there was nothing embarrassing out. I live alone, so it is mostly just my stuff. Books, clothes, random electronics. Nothing illegal, nothing weird. She showed up right on time. She looked like her photos. A little nervous, a little smiley. We grabbed food from a spot downstairs and went back up. The whole time felt casual. We sat on the couch, ate, talked about dumb stuff. She walked around a little, looking at my shelves, commenting on a poster, asking where I got my desk lamp. I did not think much of it. People do that. She used the bathroom once, maybe twice. She also asked if she could charge her phone because her battery was low. I pointed to the outlet near my desk. She plugged it in and left it there face down on the surface. I noticed, but again, nothing felt off. The date did not go badly. It also did not go anywhere. There was no spark. After about an hour and a half, she said she should head out. We hugged in that stiff, polite way, and she left. I locked the door, cleaned up, and moved on with my night. We exchanged a couple messages afterwards saying it was nice to meet. The next day she asked if I wanted to hang out again. I thought about it and decided to be honest. I said I did not really feel a connection and wished her well. She replied saying she understood and hoped I found what I was looking for. That was it. 2 days later, my apartment manager called. At first, I thought it was about a package or a noise complaint. Instead, she said they had received a report about possible illegal items in my unit. My stomach dropped instantly. Illegal how? What items? She said they had been provided with photographic evidence and needed to schedule an inspection. My hands started shaking. I asked what the photos showed. She said she could not go into detail over the phone, but that it involved prohibited materials under the lease agreement. She asked if I had anything I needed to disclose before the inspection. I sat on my couch staring at the wall, trying to inventory my entire apartment in my head. Nothing came up. No drugs, no weapons, nothing that would even come close to violating the lease. I told her there must be a mistake. She emailed me the notice while we were still on the phone. When I opened it, my chest tightened so hard it hurt. Attached were 3 photos. They were taken inside my apartment. One was of my desk, zoomed in on a stack of electronics parts and wires I keep for fixing stuff. I like taking apart old devices. The photo was framed in a way that made it look suspicious, like some kind of setup instead of a hobby. Another photo showed the inside of a storage bin in my closet. The angle was low, like the camera was held at waist height. The lighting was bad, shadows making normal objects look unclear. Cables, tools, a locked case I keep personal documents in. The description attached to the report suggested the items could be used for illegal activity. The third photo was the worst. It was taken from my couch, angled toward the hallway, clearly showing part of my bedroom door and the shelf next to it. On that shelf was a legal but restrictive item I've owned for personal reasons, stored properly and allowed under local law, but not under my building's lease. Something I never advertised, never showed off, never thought someone would notice in passing. I recognized the angle immediately. That exact spot was where she had been sitting while her phone charged. I felt sick. I tried explaining to the apartment manager that someone I had over must have taken the photos without my knowledge. She said the report was anonymous but included timestamps from the previous weekend, the same night she had been over. They needed to proceed according to protocol. The inspection happened 2 days later. I barely slept until then. I cleaned again, organized everything, put away anything that could even look questionable. When they came in, they were polite but cold. They looked where the photos directed them to look. They took notes. They opened cabinets. They checked storage. In the end, they said they would need to escalate the case to determine whether I violated the lease. I can face fines or eviction depending on the outcome. After they left, I sat on the floor and felt empty, not angry yet, just hollow. I messaged her asking if she took photos in my apartment. She did not reply. The message showed read, nothing else. I searched her name, nothing useful. I searched her photos. One of them matched a reflection I saw in the glass of my desk lamp in the first report photo. It was subtle, but it was there, her sleeve, her hand position. I reported the situation to the building management in writing, explaining that the photos were taken without consent during a personal visit. They said they understood my concern, but still had to follow the process since the report existed. Over the next week, I lived in a constant state of stress. Every sound in the hallway made my heart jump. I imagined eviction notices, legal trouble, explaining this to my job, to my family. All because I let someone sit on my couch for an hour. Eventually, the case was closed with a warning. They said while the items were questionable under the lease, there was not enough proof of intent to enforce further action this time. This time, that phrase stuck with me. I never heard from her again. Her profile disappeared. Unmatched. Gone. Like so many before her in these stories. I changed how I live after that. I stopped inviting people over. I stopped trusting casual dates. I became hyper aware of where phones were placed, where people stood, what they could see from certain angles. My apartment stopped feeling like my safe space and started feeling like a stage I had to manage. Nothing illegal was found. Nothing technically happened. But I learned how quickly someone can turn your private space into evidence and walk away untouched. Sometimes I still sit on that couch and look at the spot where she charged her phone. I wonder how long she had been planning it, whether she noticed the shelf right away or only after deciding she was upset about being rejected. I do not know what she gained from it. Power, maybe. Revenge without confrontation. The ability to cause damage quietly. All I know is that after one normal date, my own apartment almost became the thing that ruined me. The notification did not scare me at first because it looked normal. That is the part I keep coming back to. It did not scream danger. It did not buzz nonstop. It was just a quiet little calendar invite sitting on my phone like it belonged there, like I had put it there myself and somehow forgotten. I only noticed it because I was half asleep, scrolling through my phone before work, checking what my day looked like. I like knowing my schedule even when I already know it. Seeing it laid out makes me feel in control. That morning, there was something new wedged into my afternoon. A block of time labeled coffee, question mark. The location was a cafe near my job. The time matched the gap between my shifts perfectly. I stared at it longer than I should have. My first thought was that I had sleep scheduled it. My second thought was that it looked too clean, too intentional. When I had opened the details, my stomach dropped. The invite came from him. I had gone on one date with him. One, it was fine in the way a lot of first dates are fine. Not exciting, not scary. Just average. We met at a park near the river, walked for a bit, talked about work and random life stuff. He was polite. Maybe a little too curious, but nothing that stood out at the time. He asked what I did for work. I told him the field, not the place. He asked about my schedule. I said it was inconsistent, which was true. He asked what days I usually worked late. I laughed and said it changed every week. I remember thinking he was just making conversation. The date ended normally. No awkward goodbye, no pressure. Later that night, he texted asking if I wanted to go out again. I thought about it for a day before replying. I told him I did not feel a connection and wished him well. I tried to be kind and clear. He replied saying he understood and thanked me for being honest. That was the end, or at least I thought it was. Back to the calendar invite. I scrolled through the details again. The time block matched my availability, not just that day, but the rest of the week too. I checked the following days. More blocks. Labeled things like walk, free time, open slot. All accurate. Down to my work shifts, my breaks, even the one evening I usually keep free because I am too tired to do anything. I felt cold all over. I checked my calendar permissions. Nothing weird. No shared access. No unknown apps connected. I use a separate account just for work scheduling, and I never link it to anything social. I am careful about that. I always have been. I declined the invite. Immediately another one appeared. Same time, same location. I blocked the sender. The invite stopped, but the damage was done. The knowledge sat heavy in my chest. I checked our old messages, reading them slowly. He never asked where I worked exactly, but he did ask about shift lengths. He asked whether I worked weekends. He asked what days I felt most tired. It all felt casual then. Now it felt like data collection. I started going through my apps, my location settings, my fitness app, my transit app. I wondered if I had accidentally shared something somewhere. But even if I had, it would not explain how precise it was, how it lined up with my internal schedule, the one I never post. I texted my friend and sent screenshots. She joked at first, then went quiet. She said it was creepy, but maybe he guessed. Maybe he made assumptions. But guesses do not land that clean. Guesses do not know that I work late on Tuesdays, but leave early on Fridays. Guesses do not know when I usually take my lunch. That night I barely slept. I kept checking my phone, expecting more invites, more proof that someone else was mapping my time. The next morning, I noticed something else. A notification from a different app, one I rarely use. It said suggested event based on your availability. The suggested time matched another block he had sent. I felt sick. I searched his name online. Common. Useless. I searched his job title. Vague tech words. Nothing concrete. Then I searched a username he used on the app. That led me to a forum post about productivity tools and calendar scraping. The post talked about aggregating availability from multiple sources: public schedules, workplace patterns, passive data. It read like a how-to guide. I checked the date on the post. It was recent. I remembered him mentioning he liked optimizing time, how he hated wasted hours, how he said most people did not realize how predictable they were. I had laughed and said I was chaos. He smiled at that. I remember it clearly now. The next day at work, I noticed him. I did not see his face at first. I saw his posture, the way he stood near the entrance like he was waiting but not for anything specific. Then our eyes met and I felt my stomach drop. He did not approach me. He did not wave. He just nodded slightly like we shared a quiet understanding. He left before my shift ended. When I checked my phone during break, there was another calendar invite waiting. This one labeled missed opportunity. The time matched the exact moment I had looked up and seen him. I blocked another account. I locked down my calendar completely. I turned off integrations I did not even remember setting up. I changed my work availability in this system just to see what would happen. The next day, the invites adjusted. That is when I knew it was not a coincidence. It was reactive. I went to my manager and asked about schedule visibility. Who could see it? How it was shared. She said the system was internal, but certain data could be inferred through public APIs and third-party tools. She said it casually, like it was no big deal. Like people did not abuse that kind of thing. I stopped posting entirely. I changed my routine. I swapped shifts when I could. I started taking different routes to work. It felt ridiculous and necessary at the same time. I never replied to him. I never confronted him. I was afraid of confirming anything. Afraid of showing him he was right about my time being available to him if he wanted it. The invites stopped after about a week. No explanation, no apology, no message, just silence. The kind that feels temporary, like a pause instead of an ending. Even now, months later, I flinch from my calendar updates. When a suggested event pops up, when an app says based on your routine. I used to think my schedule was boring, not worth hiding. Now it feels like a map someone else once held. Nothing illegal happened. He did not threaten me. He did not show up at my door. He just proved he could see my time better than I could, and that knowledge alone changed everything. I still use calendars. I still work. I still date sometimes, but every no feels heavier now. Like it might trigger something quiet and technical instead of loud and obvious. I did not lose anything concrete. I did not get hurt, but I lost the feeling that my time was mine alone. I did not go into that date planning to open anything up. I just wanted something light, something normal, something that would not follow me home. I had worked a long shift, my brain felt cooked, and I was already half annoyed with myself for even agreeing to meet someone after a week like that. I figured worst case, it would be awkward, we would split, and that would be it. It did not start heavy. That is the part that still messes with me. It started calm, almost soothing, like she knew exactly how to get me relaxed before steering things somewhere else. We matched on an app I barely trusted anymore. Her profile was soft in a way that felt intentional. Neutral photos, nothing flashy, captions that sounded thoughtful without trying too hard. She messaged first and asked how my week had been, not in the usual shallow way, but like she actually wanted the answer. I told her it was rough. She said she understood. That simple line made me open up more than I meant to. We talked for a few days before meeting. Nothing deep at first. Music, work, random complaints. Then she started asking questions that felt more personal but still safe. What stressed me out the most? What I did when I felt overwhelmed? Who I usually talked to when things got heavy? I answered because she shared her own stuff too. Or at least she said she did. Looking back, I realized how vague her answers were compared to mine. We met at a small park near an old rail trail. Not crowded, but not empty either. Late afternoon light, people walking dogs, kids riding bikes. It felt like a safe place to talk. We sat on a bench and started with small stuff. She smiled a lot, nodded, made eye contact that felt grounding instead of intense. Then she asked about my childhood. Not in a sudden way. She eased into it by talking about hers, moving a lot, feeling disconnected, having moments that stuck longer than they should. I related to some of it. That made me drop my guard. When she asked what moments stuck with me, I hesitated, then mentioned something small, a memory from school that still bothered me sometimes. She leaned in slightly, not physically close, just attentive. She asked how it made me feel now, not back then, now. That question hit harder than I expected. I answered honestly. I told her I still felt tense thinking about it. She nodded like she was confirming something. From there, the conversation shifted. Slowly, she asked about losses, about regrets, about moments I wished I could redo. Each question felt connected, like stepping stones. I kept thinking I could stop any time, but the way she listened made it feel natural to keep going. I talked about my dad, about a night I still replay sometimes, about things I never really say out loud because they make me feel exposed. I could feel my throat tightening while I spoke, but she kept me steady, asking gentle follow-ups, never pushing too hard. I thought she was being kind. I did not notice her phone at first. It was resting on her leg, screen facing down. At some point she adjusted it, and I saw a quick glow before it went dark again. I assumed it was a notification. I did not think someone would record something like that. By the time we stood up to leave, I felt drained, lighter in one way, heavier in another. She thanked me for trusting her, said it meant a lot. I believed her. We hugged, a long hug, not romantic, grounding. I went home feeling strange but calm, like I had just finished something important without knowing what it was. We texted that night. She said she appreciated how open I was. I replied that it felt good to talk. Over the next few days, the energy changed. She checked in, but it felt different. More distant, more observational, like she was done collecting something. A week later, she asked if I wanted to meet again. I thought about it and said I was not sure. I felt exposed around her, and I could not explain why. She replied saying she understood and thanked me again for my honesty. Then came the message that broke everything open. It was long, calm, written like an explanation instead of an apology. She said she wanted to be transparent now that we were not continuing. She says she worked with a private firm that studied emotional responses in natural settings. She said they focused on how people reacted when recalling difficult memories in relaxed environments. She said the date was part of her data collection. My chest felt like it collapsed inward. She said my participation helped her work. She said my responses were valuable. She said everything was anonymized. She said no names were attached. She said she never intended to hurt me. I sat on my bed staring at the screen, my hands shaking. I read the message over and over, trying to understand how something that felt so personal could be framed like that, like it was a case study instead of a person. I asked if she recorded me. She said yes, audio only. She said she needed natural speech patterns and emotional shifts. She said consent was implied by participation in conversation. That line made me feel sick. I asked where the recordings went. She said they were stored securely and used internally. She said they were part of a larger data set. She said my identity was protected. Protected. That word felt hollow. I asked why she did not tell me up front. She said people act differently when they know they are being observed. She said authenticity mattered for the work. She said she believed the benefit outweighed the discomfort. I did not reply after that. I could not find words that did not feel useless. For days afterward, I felt off. Memories I usually keep locked down kept popping up at random times. I would be washing dishes or waiting for a bus and suddenly feel like I was back on that bench, talking while someone quietly archived my worst moments. I started questioning other interactions, other dates, other conversations, wondering how many times I had been more open than I should have been, wondering if kindness was just another way in now. I searched her name. Not much came up. But I did find a site for a consulting group that talked about behavioral insight and emotional mapping. The language was clinical, detached. It described people like variables. I reported her on the app. I do not know if anything happened. I never heard back. Her profile disappeared shortly after, but that did not make me feel better. The recordings did not disappear with it. Sometimes I imagine my voice playing through someone else's headphones, my pauses, my breathing, the way my tone changed when I talked about things that still hurt. I imagine someone labeling it, tagging it, assigning meaning to it without context. Nothing illegal happened, no threats, no blackmail, just consent blurred enough to be meaningless, trust used as a tool. I still talk to people, I still go on dates, but I do not go deep anymore. Not because I am healed, but because I am cautious. I keep things surface level even when I feel an urge to open up. That urge used to feel healthy. Now it feels risky. The worst part is that on that bench, in that moment, I thought I was doing something good for myself. I thought I was finally talking about things instead of burying them. I did not know I was part of someone else's project. I'd never got an apology, just an explanation. I thought the worst memories were buried deep enough that they only came up when I let them. Turns out all it takes is the right person asking the right questions in the right order, and suddenly things you have not touched in years are sitting on the table between you like they were always meant to be there. The date started on a night I almost canceled. I was tired in that specific way where your body wants rest but your brain wants distraction. I opened the app out of habit and saw her message sitting there, calm and friendly, asking if I was still up for meeting. I told myself not to overthink it. I grabbed my jacket and went. Her profile had felt safe. That was the word I used in my head. No extreme opinions, no heady trauma dumping, no performative positivity. Just a normal person who said she liked quiet places and long talks. That sounded good to me. I am not great at loud dates or forced fun. We met at a late-night bookstore cafe that stayed open longer than it should have. Warm lights, soft music, people reading alone at small tables. It felt like a place where conversations slowed down naturally. She was already there, sitting with a notebook and a mug. When she looked up and smiled, I felt my shoulders drop without realizing they had been tense. We talked about normal stuff at first. Work, random hobbies, how weird it is that everyone pretends to love being busy. She listened closely, not interrupting, not jumping in with her own story every time I spoke. It felt easy to talk to her. I remember thinking that it had been a while since I felt that. After a while, she asked what usually sticks with me from the past. Not favorite memories, not proud moments, just what sticks. The question caught me off guard in a quiet way. I jumped a little, tried to keep it light, but she nodded like she understood and waited. Silence stretched just long enough that I filled it. I mentioned a moment from years ago that still replayed sometimes. Not the worst thing that ever happened to me, but something close. She did not react dramatically. She asked what I noticed in my body when I thought about it. That question landed harder than I expected. I had never thought about it like that. I answered without filtering. From there, the conversation shifted, slowly but clearly. She asked about moments I avoided thinking about people I missed but never talked about mistakes that still felt unfinished. Each question felt connected to the last, like steps leading somewhere I did not realize we were going. I noticed myself talking more than usual. My voice sounded different to my own ears, slower, heavier. She leaned forward slightly when I spoke, nodding, occasionally repeating a word I used like she was anchoring it. It felt validating, like someone was actually hearing me. At some point, she asked about the worst memory I still carried. I hesitated. My instinct was to deflect, to joke, to change the subject. But she said it was okay to take my time. She said people usually feel better after saying things out loud. I believed her. I talked about a night I almost never talk about. Details I usually keep locked away. Things that still show up in my dreams sometimes. As I spoke, I felt exposed and relieved at the same time. I remember rubbing my hands together without realizing it. She watched closely, eyes steady, face calm. When I finished, there was a pause. She thanked me for trusting her, said it meant something. I felt seen in a way that scared me a little but also felt good, like maybe this was what connection was supposed to feel like. I did not notice the small device on the table at first. It looked like a battery pack or a phone stand. Something normal enough that my brain ignored it. Later, I would replay the night and realize how deliberately it had been placed. We stayed there for another hour, but the conversation drifted back to lighter things. I felt drained, like I had run a mental marathon. When we finally left, the air outside felt sharp and real. We hugged goodbye. She held on just a second longer than expected. I walked home feeling raw but calm. We texted a little that night. She said she appreciated how open I was. I said it felt good to talk. The next day, the energy shifted. She was polite but distant. Replies took longer. Questions stopped. I'd assumed she lost interest. That stung a little, but I accepted it. 3 days later, she asked if we could talk. Not meet, just talk. I said sure. Her message was long and careful. She said she wanted to be honest now that things were clear between us. She said our conversation had not been accidental. She said she worked with a private firm that studied emotional responses in natural social settings. She said she specialized in eliciting and observing reactions tied to memory recall. My chest tightened as I read on. She said our date helped her gather valuable data. She said my reactions during specific moments were especially useful. She said the firm focused on baseline emotional responses, the way people reacted before being aware they were being evaluated. She said it helped them build better predictive models. Predictive models. I asked what that meant for me. She said my identity was anonymized. She said my data was coded and stored securely. She said nothing would ever be traced back to me personally. She said I helped improve understanding. I asked if she recorded me. She said yes. Audio and biometric signals. She said it was passive collection. She said the device on the table was designed to blend in. She said most people never notice it. I felt sick. I asked why she did not tell me beforehand. She said disclosure altered responses. She said informed subjects behave differently. She said her work depended on authenticity. I stared at my phone for a long time before replying. My hands were shaking. I asked what firm she worked for. She gave a name I did not recognize. I searched it. The website was clean and vague, full of language about insight, optimization, emotional mapping. People reduced to patterns. I asked what would happen to the recordings. She said they would be reviewed, labeled, and stored as part of a dataset. She said they might be used in internal presentations or training materials. She said my voice would never be identified by name. My voice. I thought about how my voice sounded when I talked about those memories, how it cracked in places, how I paused, how I breathed differently. The idea of someone else replaying that made my stomach turn. I told her I never consented. She said consent was implied by participation in conversation in a public space. She said there were no laws against recording ambient audio in that setting. She said she understood it felt uncomfortable. Uncomfortable felt like the wrong word. I stopped responding after that. There was nothing else to say. She did not push. She did not apologize. She just explained. For weeks afterward, I felt off. Memories I had shoved down started surfacing randomly. I would be at work or on the bus and suddenly feel that same tightness in my chest, like something had been opened and not closed properly. I started questioning my instincts, how easily I had opened up, how quickly I trusted someone who felt safe. I replayed the night over and over, noticing how smoothly she guided the conversation, how rarely she shared anything equally personal. I reported her on the app. I do not know what happened. Her profile disappeared shortly after, but that did not bring any relief. The data did not disappear with it. Sometimes I imagine a room somewhere with people watching graphs and waveforms move while my voice plays softly in the background. My worst moments reduced to spikes and labels. Useful, informative, detached. I still go on dates. I still talk to people. But I keep things shallow now. Not because I am healed, but because I am guarded. I do not talk about the deep stuff with strangers anymore. I do not trust the calm listeners the same way. The scariest part was not that she worked for a firm or that she recorded me. It was how natural it felt while it was happening. How easily pain can be turned into a resource if someone knows how to ask. I thought I was opening up to another person. I did not know I was helping someone build a baseline. I did not know I had been labeled until it was already old news. That is the part that keeps looping in my head. It did not explode into my life with notifications or messages or threats. It settled quietly, spread slowly, and by the time I saw it, it had already decided what I was. The date itself barely registers now. That should tell you how normal that was. If someone asked me to describe it before everything else happened, I would have shrugged and said it was fine. We met at a small pizza place near a park, the kind with paper plates and folding chairs. Nothing fancy. Nothing intense. She was a little quieter than her messages, but still friendly. We talked about work, about how weird dating apps were, about how everyone seemed tired all the time. It felt like filler conversation. Safe, forgettable. We ate, walked around the park a bit, sat on a bench. She asked about my past relationships. I answered honestly but briefly. I do not like going deep on first dates. She asked what I was looking for. I said something vague about connection and seeing where things go. She nodded. I remember thinking she seemed distracted, like she was half somewhere else. When we said goodbye, it felt clean. No awkward tension. No strong pull. Later that night, I messaged saying it was nice to meet her. She never replied. Not even a polite fade out. Just gone. I did not think much of it. Ghosting sucks, but it is common enough that you learn to absorb it without questioning your whole existence. I unmatched, went back to my routine, forgot her name within a week. Months passed. It was late one night when a friend sent me a screenshot with no context. I'd almost ignored it. When I opened it, my stomach dropped so hard I thought I might throw up. It was my face, one of my dating app photos. The same one I had used everywhere for a while. Under it was a caption that said, "Be careful." No accusation, no story, just that phrase. I stared at it for a long time, trying to convince myself it was fake. Maybe someone who looked like me. Maybe an old meme. But I recognized the background. My old apartment. The lighting. It was definitely me. The screenshot was from a private group. Local, women only. One of those safety spaces people talk about quietly. My friend said someone she knew recognized me and asked if she should be worried. That was how it spread. Not through confrontation. Through whispers. I asked what the post said exactly. She sent more screenshots. The comments were worse than the caption. People sharing impressions. Not crimes. Not incidents. Impressions. Someone said I came off intense. Someone said I asked too many questions. Someone said I made her uncomfortable without knowing why. Someone else said I seemed nice but something felt off. Then came the part that hurt the most. A comment from her. She said we went on one date. She said nothing bad happened. She said I was polite. She said she just wanted others to trust their instincts. She said she could not explain it, but she would not meet me again. There was nothing in that I could point to and say this is a lie. I felt frozen. How do you defend yourself against vibes? How do you prove someone else's discomfort is not your fault? How do you argue with caution phrased as care? I asked my friend if she could say something. She said the group rules did not allow defending men, only sharing warnings. She said even questioning a post could get her removed. Over the next few weeks, things started making sense in the worst way. Matches disappeared. Conversations ended abruptly. People would stop replying after a few messages right around the time they asked for my last name or where I worked. Someone unmatched immediately after asking for my Instagram, which I rarely give out. It felt like I was being checked against something I could not see. I Googled my name. Nothing obvious. Then I Googled my photos. Still nothing public. These groups were closed. Private. Invitation only. That made it worse. I could not even see what was being said most of the time. A coworker mentioned a friend who matched with me and decided not to meet. She said it casually like a joke. My chest tightened. I asked why. She shrugged and said people talk. I replayed the date over and over, trying to find the moment I messed up. The tone I used. The question I asked. The pause that felt wrong. I found nothing concrete. Just normal human interaction filtered through someone else's fear. I considered reaching out to her. Then I imagined that being screenshotted and shared too. Framed as proof I did not respect boundaries. Everything felt like a trap. I reported the post to the platform where the screenshot came from. They said they could not act on content from private groups. I contacted the dating app. They said they had no control over off-platform discussions. I was stuck in a loop of polite refusals. The hardest part was how it bled into real life without ever fully surfacing. I would feel it in small moments. A date canceling last minute with no reschedule. Someone asking pointed questions early like they were testing me. A friend telling me to just be careful out there, like I was the one at risk. I asked another friend who was in those groups if she had seen my name. She hesitated before answering. That hesitation told me everything. She said my photo had been posted more than once, always with neutral language, always with that same warning tone. Nothing specific enough to fight. She said the worst ones are the vague posts, the ones that do not accuse, just suggest. Those stick, those spread. I changed my photos, changed my bio. I even tried a different app. For a bit, it worked. Then the same thing happened again. The slow drop-off, the quiet vanishing, like the label followed me. I started meeting people only through friends. Even then, I wondered what they had heard before meeting me, whether they were watching for signs I did not know I was giving. Months later, another screenshot surfaced. My photo again, same caption, be careful, different group. I asked my friend what people said this time. She said someone commented that nothing bad had happened, but they got a weird feeling. Someone else said better safe than sorry. Safe from what? I wanted to ask. From a guy who was awkward, from someone who did not spark joy, from discomfort. I am not saying people should ignore their instincts. I get why those groups exist. I get that they help people feel safer. What I did not expect was how easily someone could become a warning without doing anything provably wrong. I'd never got a chance to explain myself because there was nothing to explain. No incident, no moment, just a feeling someone else had and shared. I still date sometimes, less online, more cautious. I notice how often people ask indirect questions now, how often they seem to be checking me against a list I cannot see. I do not know how many times my photo is out there. I do not know what captions are under it now. I just know that somewhere in spaces I cannot access, I am a story told by other people. Nothing in those posts is provably false. That is what makes it impossible to fight. I am not accused of anything. I am just advised against. And that kind of warning does not expire. I knew something was wrong before I knew why no one would help me. It started as a feeling, the kind you try to ignore because you do not want to be dramatic in public. I kept telling myself I was safe, that I was overreacting, that if something was actually off, then someone around me would notice too. They did not, or they chose not to. I matched with him on a slow night when my phone felt heavier than usual. His profile was calm, almost boring. Neutral photos, simple bio, nothing intense. He messaged like someone who had done this a lot. Polite, steady, never rushed. I liked that at the time. It felt stable. We talked for about a week. Nothing deep. He asked about my job, my hobbies, what kind of places I like to hang out. I mentioned liking quiet spots where I could actually hear myself think. He said he preferred controlled settings too. I thought he meant calm. I did not ask him to explain. He suggested meeting at a small event space downtown that doubled as a lounge. It hosted pop-ups, talks, small performances. I had been there once with friends and remembered it feeling safe and well-staffed. I told my friend where I was going, set my usual check-in, and left feeling normal. The space looked the same as I remembered. Clean, warm lighting. Front desk near the entrance. A few staff members moving around. My shoulders relaxed when I saw them. He was already inside, sitting at a table near the back. He smiled and stood when he saw me. Nothing about him felt immediately threatening. We sat and talked. At first, it was fine. Casual conversation. Drinks. Music playing softly. Then little things started stacking up in a way I could not ignore. He chose the table farthest from the entrance. When a staff member walked by, he waited until they were out of earshot before speaking again. He asked questions that felt oddly specific about how I reacted under stress. What I did when I felt trapped in conversations. How I asked for help if I needed it. I tried to keep things light, but he kept steering it back. Every time I changed the subject, he brought it around again. just from a different angle. I started to feel boxed in without anything actually happening. The feeling was subtle but strong. At one point, the music volume dropped suddenly. Not off, just lower. I noticed because it made his voice feel louder, closer. He leaned in slightly, not touching me, but close enough that I could feel his presence more than I wanted to. I told myself to relax. This was a public place, staff everywhere. I excused myself to go to the restroom just to get space. While washing my hands, I noticed my reflection looked tense, jaw tight, shoulders raised. I took a breath and decided I was going to leave early. No big scene. Just say I was tired and go. When I came back, he had moved my chair closer to his. Not dramatically, just enough that it felt intentional. I sat anyway because standing there felt worse. I told him I needed to head out soon. He nodded, but kept talking, asking me to stay just a few more minutes. That is when I tried to get help. I stood up and walked toward the front desk. My heart was beating fast, but I told myself to stay calm. I told the staff member I felt uncomfortable and asked if someone could walk me out. She smiled politely and said they were short-staffed and that everything seemed fine. She gestured vaguely toward the room like that settled it. I tried again with another staff member near the bar. I said I was on a date and did not feel safe. She glanced over at him, then back at me, and said if there was a real issue they would have noticed. She suggested I sit closer to the front. I felt stupid, exposed, like I had failed some invisible test. I went back to the table because I did not know what else to do. He looked amused in a quiet way. Not smiling, but settled, like this was going according to plan. I told him I was leaving now. No more hints. He did not argue. He stood up and walked with me toward the exit. Staff nodded at us as we passed. No one asked if I was okay. No one slowed us down. Outside, the air felt sharp. I said goodbye quickly and walked away without looking back. My hands were shaking by the time I reached the corner. I called my friend and talked until my voice steadied. I blocked him that night. Unmatched. Gone. I told myself it was over. Just a bad feeling and a close call. Weeks passed. Then one afternoon, I walked past that same space with a coworker. There was a sign on the door listing upcoming reservations. Weekly bookings. One name stood out. His name. Same spelling. Every Tuesday. Same time. I stopped walking. I told my coworker I thought I recognized the name. She said, yeah, that guy rents the place all the time. She said he uses it for some kind of controlled environment sessions. She laughed when she said it like it was quirky, like yoga or meditation. My stomach dropped. I asked what that meant. She said he pays extra to have the space arranged a certain way. Lighting, music levels, seating layout. She said staff are told not to interfere unless there is an obvious issue. She said he is a regular and management trusts him. Everything clicked in the worst way. The way the music lowered, the table placement, the staff reactions, the way no one stepped in. It was not neglect. It was policy. I did more digging. Not hacking or anything dramatic. Just searching. I found a listing for private environment rentals on their site. Packages, weekly rates, add-ons. One included minimal staff interaction for uninterrupted sessions. Uninterrupted. I found a review buried deep where someone mentioned feeling weird during a date there. Said staff did nothing when she asked for help. Another comment agreed. Said something about the vibe being off on Tuesdays. I reported the place. I sent an email explaining what happened. I never got a response. The next time I checked, the weekly reservation was still listed. I did not see him again. I do not know if he remembers me. I do not know if I was just one of many. I do know that the space felt different after that. Like it had rules I did not know about until it was too late. Now, every time I walk into a public place, I notice things I never used to. How tables are arranged, where staff stand, how quickly someone responds when you look unsure. I do not assume public means protected anymore. Nothing illegal happened. No one touched me. No one threatened me. But the system worked exactly as designed, just not for me. I keep thinking about how many people might have gone there thinking it was safe because it looked safe. How many times staff smiled and looked away because that was part of the agreement. I still go on dates. I still meet people. But I avoid places I do not control. I trust my instincts faster now, even when no one else backs them up. The scariest part was not him. It was realizing the room itself was on his side. I used to think saying yes to small things was how you showed you were easygoing, like proof you were not controlling or weird. I never thought those little agreements could be stacked up and used against me later, cut into pieces, and turned into something I could not explain my way out of. The date started normal enough that I almost skipped it. I was tired, scrolling on my phone, telling myself I should take a break from apps. Then her message came in light and casual, asking if I was still up for meeting. I said yes without thinking much about it. That word came easy back then. Her profile felt harmless. Messy photos, sarcastic captions, nothing polished. She seemed like someone who did not take things too seriously. That was a relief. I was burned out on intense conversations of people who treated dating like a performance review. We met at a small art space that doubled as a cafe. Exposed brick, folding chairs, local posters taped to the walls. It felt low pressure, public, safe. She was already there, sitting at a table near the back, phone in her hand. She smiled when she saw me and waved me over. The conversation flowed easily at first. Jokes about bad dates, complaining about work, random stories that did not matter. She laughed a lot, nodded, leaned in when I spoke. It felt good to be listened to without having to impress. Then she started asking for small things. Nothing big, things that felt normal. Would I mind sitting on this side of the table instead? Could we order something to share? Could she borrow my charger for a second? Could we take a quick photo together for memories? Each time, I said yes without hesitation. I noticed her phone was always angled toward us, but I assumed she was just scrolling or checking messages. When she asked if she could record a short video of us talking about our favorite food, I laughed and agreed. It felt harmless, like content people post all the time. She framed questions in a way that made agreement feel natural. Do I agree that communication is important? Do I agree that boundaries matter? Do I agree that honesty is better than avoiding conflict? I said yes to all of it because of course I did. Who would not? Every yes felt like a nod in a normal conversation. Nothing dramatic. Nothing I would remember later. She asked if I was comfortable with her being very direct. I said yes. She asked if I agreed that consent is ongoing and can be withdrawn at any time. I said yes. She smiled when I said that, like she had been waiting for it. The date lasted about 2 hours. By the end, I felt a little drained but still fine. No red flags, no arguments. When we said goodbye, it felt polite and complete. Later that night, she messaged saying she had a good time. I replied the same. The next day, she asked if I wanted to meet again. I thought about it longer this time. Something about the night stuck with me in a way I could not fully explain. Not fear, just discomfort. I told her I did not feel a connection and wished her well. Her reply came fast. It was not angry. It was calm, almost friendly. She said she understood and respected my decision. Then she mentioned that she had recorded parts of our conversation for personal safety reasons. She said she hoped that was okay since I had agreed to be recorded. My stomach dropped. I told her I did not realize she was keeping those recordings. She said she had asked permission multiple times. She said I had said yes each time. She said she had everything saved just in case she ever needed it. Needed it for what? I asked her to delete them. She said she would consider it. Then she sent a short clip. It was my voice saying yes, cut cleanly. No context. Just agreement. Then another clip. Another yes. Each one taken from a different moment. Stacked back to back, it sounded like I was agreeing to something much bigger than what was actually being discussed. She explained that misunderstandings happen online. She said people sometimes misrepresent situations. She said having proof protected everyone. She said if anyone ever questioned her account of the date, she had recordings showing my consent. Consent to what? I felt cold all over. I tried explaining that those yes answers were to general questions, not specific actions. She said tone and timing mattered. She said clips speak for themselves. She said context is subjective. Over the next few days, she sent more messages, not threatening outright, just hinting. She mentioned how easy it is for narratives to spread, how people believe audio more than explanations, how careful she was about protecting herself. She said she did not want problems. She just wanted me to understand how things could look if framed a certain way. I stopped replying. My chest felt tight all the time. Every notification made my heart jump. I imagined my voice circulating without me, chopped into pieces, attached to accusations vague enough to be impossible to fight. I talked to a friend about it. He told me to save everything and not engage. He said nothing she had done was clearly illegal, but it was messed up. That word felt too small. I went back through my memory of the date, noticing things I missed before. How often she asked questions that required verbal agreement. How she repeated them if I nodded instead of speaking. How she positioned her phone every time. It was not spontaneous. It was methodical. A week later, she sent another message. She said she was part of an advocacy group that documented dating interactions to highlight problematic patterns. She said my recordings might be useful educational material. She said she would anonymize them, but voices are recognizable. She said she hoped I understood why she needed to be prepared. Prepared for what exactly was never said. I felt trapped in a situation where defending myself could make it worse. Anything I said could be recorded. Anything I denied could be framed as backtracking. Silence felt safer, even though it made me feel weak. I locked down my socials. I warned close friends just in case. I stopped using dating apps altogether. It felt like the ground under me had shifted, like normal conversation was no longer safe. Eventually, the messages stopped. No final threat. No resolution. Just quiet. That was somehow worse. I did not know if she moved on or if she was waiting. Months passed without anything happening publicly. I started to relax, but the tension never fully left. I still think about those recordings sitting somewhere. My voice, my casual yes answers, detached from the moments they belonged to. I became hyper-aware of how I speak now. I catch myself avoiding clear agreement, using longer explanations. Hedging. It makes conversations awkward, but I cannot stop. I am always imagining my words being lifted out and rearranged. Nothing ever went viral. My name was not dragged through the internet. But the threat alone changed me. The knowledge that someone could twist my own words into a weapon made me quieter, more careful. I do not know if she ever intended to follow through. Maybe the power was in knowing she could. Maybe that was enough. I still replay the date sometimes, wondering at what point it stopped being a date and turned into something else. I cannot find the moment. It was all too smooth, too reasonable. The scariest part is that everything she has is real. My voice, my words, my yes answers. Nothing fabricated, nothing provably false. Just context removed. I noticed the typing before I noticed how uncomfortable I was getting. At first, it was just background noise, thumbs tapping lightly on a screen while I talked, the kind of thing people do when they are nervous or bored. I told myself not to be judgmental. Everyone multitasks now. Still, every time I paused, the tapping kept going, steady and focused, like he was transcribing something instead of chatting. We matched on a night when I was restless and scrolling out of habit. His profile looked harmless. Average photos, neutral bio, nothing loud or edgy. He messaged first and asked questions that felt thoughtful, not invasive. I liked that he seemed interested without trying too hard. When he suggested meeting at a casual ramen place near the edge of downtown, I agreed without overthinking it. The place was busy but not packed. Long tables, steam fogging up the windows, people leaning close to hear each other over the noise. It felt safe. Public. I got there a little early and grabbed a seat. When he arrived, he smiled politely and sat across from me, phone already in his hand. The conversation started fine. Normal stuff. Work, hobbies, how bad traffic had been lately. Every so often, he would glance down and type something quickly, then look back up like nothing happened. I assumed he was replying to someone else. I did not want to be that person who gets annoyed by a phone on a first date. Then the questions started getting slightly off rhythm. Not creepy, just oddly framed. He asked how I handled awkward situations. I said I usually tried to laugh them off. He nodded and typed. He asked if I minded when people interrupted me. I shrugged and said it depended. More typing. I joked about him taking notes and he smiled, said something vague about liking to remember details. The tapping continued. As the night went on, little moments started stacking up. He let silences stretch just a bit too long. He asked questions and then stared at me without reacting right away. He corrected small things I said, like exact times or word choices, in a way that made me second-guess myself. Each time, he typed something afterward. I started feeling like I was being observed instead of met, like my reactions mattered more than my answers. At one point, he leaned back and asked how I felt about being uncomfortable sometimes. I laughed awkwardly and said nobody liked that. He asked if I thought discomfort built character. I said maybe in small doses. Tap, tap, tap. I noticed my shoulders were tense. My voice sounded different to my own ears. I was choosing words more carefully without knowing why. Every time I shifted in my seat or checked my watch, his eyes flicked to his phone. The food came and helped break things up for a minute. Chewing gave me something else to focus on. But even then, he typed. Short bursts. Consistent. Like logging entries. I finally asked what he was writing. He did not look embarrassed. That was the part that stuck with me. He just told me calmly that he tracked his dates. Not names, not personal info, just patterns. He said it helped him understand people better. My stomach dropped a little, but I tried to keep it light. I asked what kind of patterns. He said tolerance. That word landed wrong. He explained that he rated how people handled discomfort, small things, pauses, awkward questions, minor social friction. He said it told him more than surface-level compatibility ever could. He said he uploaded the results to a private network where others shared similar data. I stared at him, waiting for a laugh or a sign he was joking. It never came. He said it was all anonymous, no faces, no names, just scores and notes. He said it helped people avoid wasting time on bad matches. He said most people never noticed. I felt heat rush to my face. I asked if he was rating me right now. He nodded and typed again. Something in me snapped, not loudly, just quietly. The ramen place suddenly felt too tight, too loud. I could feel my heartbeat in my ears. I told him I was not comfortable with that. He nodded again, like he expected that response. He typed something and said that reaction was useful too. Useful. I stood up so fast my chair scraped loudly against the floor. People glanced over. I did not care. I grabbed my bag and told him I was leaving. He did not stop me. He just watched, phone in hand, thumbs still. Outside, the air felt sharp and clean. I walked until my legs stopped shaking. I texted my friend and told her I was on my way home. My hands were still unsteady when I unlocked my door. Later that night, curiosity got the better of me. I opened the app and checked his profile. Still there. Still active. I wondered how many people sat across from him without realizing what was happening. How many thought the typing was harmless. I searched some of the phrases he used. Tolerance rating. Discomfort tracking. Buried deep in forums and invite-only sites were references to private groups where people shared behavioral data from dates. Not reviews. Not warnings. Metrics. Numbers assigned to reactions like flinching, deflecting, staying polite too long. I felt sick scrolling through it. It read like a game. The next day, he messaged me saying he understood why I left. He said my score was average. He said that was not a bad thing. He said I handled confrontation better than most. I blocked him without replying. Over the next few weeks, I noticed myself changing. I caught myself scanning rooms for phones angled just right. I felt tense when dates checked their screens too often. I started over-explaining reactions like I needed to control how they might be interpreted later. One night, a guy I matched with casually mentioned that people track stuff like this now. He laughed like it was a joke. My chest tightened. I ended the conversation early. I kept thinking about that private network, about my reactions living somewhere as data points, about strangers seeing a number attached to my discomfort without knowing anything else about me. Nothing illegal happened. No threats. No blackmail. Just measurement without consent. Observation framed as curiosity. Sometimes I replay the date in my head and try to find the moment I could have changed the outcome. Maybe if I had laughed differently. Maybe if I had called him out sooner. Then I realized that was never the point. The whole thing was designed to see how far I would bend before breaking. I still go on dates, but I trust my discomfort faster now. I do not wait for proof. I do not explain myself as much. If something feels off, I leave. The scariest part was how normal he looked while doing it. How calm, how reasonable. Like he was just collecting weather data instead of watching people squirm. I wonder how many profiles are built from nights like that. How many private networks trade in quiet moments when someone did not know they were being tested. I'd never found my score. I do not know where it sits or who has seen it. I just know that somewhere, my discomfort was logged, rated, and shared like it meant something. The first sign something was wrong was not a warning email or a locked account. It was silence where things should have been. I opened my cloud storage out of habit while waiting for coffee, planning to pull up a document, and it loaded like normal but felt wrong, like a room after someone else already walked through it and put things back almost where they were. Nothing screamed breach. Nothing flashed red. A few files were just different. Timestamps that did not line up with my memory. Folders I never sorted suddenly neat. A sense that someone had touched my stuff with clean hands and no rush. That feeling took me straight back to the date. I matched with her on a slow week when I was trying to be more open instead of swiping past everything. Her profile felt low drama. Photos with bad lighting, captions that sounded honest. We messaged for a few days, nothing intense. She asked questions that felt thoughtful without being heavy. I remember liking that she listened and followed up instead of jumping topics. We met at a late afternoon cafe attached to a bookstore. Quiet enough to hear yourself think. Wooden tables, paper cups, people pretending to work. It felt safe. We ordered drinks and sat near the window. The conversation flowed in that easy way that makes you forget to guard yourself. She asked about my family. Not in a prying way, just curious, where I grew up, who I was closest to, what places felt like home. I talked without thinking much about it because those questions always come up eventually. She asked about childhood pets. I laughed and told a story I had not thought about in years. She smiled and said she liked details. Then she asked about firsts. First car, first job, first place I lived alone. The questions were framed like nostalgia, not data collection. I answered because it felt like sharing, not reporting. At one point, she joked about how bad security questions are, how easy it is to guess people's answers if you know them. I laughed and agreed. I said I always forget what answers I used. She said she hated when accounts asked about favorite teachers or childhood streets. I mentioned how I always answer honestly because I can never remember fake answers. That should have stuck out. It did not. The date ended fine. No fireworks. No red flags. We hugged goodbye. Later that night, she texted saying she had fun. I replied the same. Over the next few days, the messages slowed and stopped. No drama, just a fade. Then came the cloud thing. I started clicking through folders, trying to pinpoint what felt off. A photo album had been opened recently even though I had not touched it in months. A backup folder had been accessed. Not downloaded, not altered, just opened. I checked the activity log. There it was. A login from my city, same device type as mine. Same browser family. Nothing that triggered alarms. It looked like me. I reset my password immediately. Turned on extra security. Checked my email for alerts. There was one I had missed buried in spam. It said account recovery successful. Recovery. My chest tightened. I clicked into the security section and saw that recovery questions had been used. Not a password breach, not malware. Someone had answered the questions correctly. I stared at the list like it might change if I blinked. Childhood pet name. Street I grew up on. Favorite teacher. First car model. All things I hadn't talked about on that date. Casually, laughing with coffee in my hand. I felt sick. I ran through the timeline, the date, the jokes, the way she steered conversation toward memories instead of present facts, the way she asked follow-ups to lock details in, the way she nodded when I mentioned being bad at remembering fake answers. I called the cloud service support. They told me the access was legitimate. Recovery answers were correct. No policy violation. They suggested I change my questions. I asked if they could tell me what was accessed. They said minimal viewing. No downloads detected. No changes made. They said it looked like someone just looked around. Looked around. I spent the rest of the day changing passwords everywhere. Email, storage, socials, anything tied together. My hands shook the whole time. I kept imagining someone scrolling through my photos, my documents, pieces of my life I stored there because I trusted the system. That night I messaged her, not accusing, just asking if she had tried to access my account. The message showed delivered. Then read, no reply. I searched her name online. Common. Useless. I searched her photos. One of them popped up on a forum post about account recovery testing. The context was vague. The image was small, but it was her. Same jacket, same smile. The post talked about how people overshare answers to security prompts when relaxed. I felt cold all over. Over the next few days, I noticed more subtle things. A draft document I never finished had been opened. A folder labeled old had been checked. Nothing deleted, nothing added, just presence. Like someone walking through your apartment without taking anything, just learning where things are. I tried to convince myself it was coincidence, that someone else could have known those answers, but the overlap was too clean, the timing too perfect. I went back through our messages, reading them slowly. I noticed how often she asked me to clarify, how she repeated details back to me to confirm them, how she laughed at the idea of lying to security questions. It all read differently now. I reported the incident to the app. They said they could not act on off-platform behavior. I reported it to the cloud service again. They said everything functioned as designed. They suggested using random answers in the future. Random answers. I told a friend what happened. He said it sounded like social engineering, but done quietly. No hacking, no malware, just conversation. He said it was smart in a scary way. I did not feel smart. I felt stupid for being open, for assuming sharing stories was harmless. Weeks passed. Nothing else happened. No ransom. No threats. No messages. That was almost worse. It meant the access itself was the point. I imagined her sitting somewhere, scrolling through my files, not to steal, but to understand. To map. To see how much of me was there. I imagined her closing the app when she was done, leaving everything intact so I would doubt myself. I moved important files offline. I deleted old backups. I stopped storing personal photos in the cloud. Every change felt like closing a door after someone already saw inside. Sometimes I wonder what she looked at. What if she recognized anything? What if she learned something new or just confirmed what she already knew from the date? I never heard from her again. Her profile disappeared. Unmatched, gone. Nothing illegal happened, according to everyone I asked. The system worked as intended. The answers were correct. Access was granted. But I learned something that stuck. You can lock your accounts and encrypt your files, but you still live inside your own memories. And those are easy to open if someone asks nicely in the right order. I still go on dates, I still talk about my past, but I catch myself stopping short now. Editing, skipping details. Not because I am hiding something, but because I learned how little it takes to open doors you did not know you were pointing out. Every time an account asks me to set recovery questions, I feel my stomach drop. I type nonsense answers now, streams that mean nothing, and I hate that I have to. The scariest part was not losing data. It was realizing that nothing was taken because nothing needed to be. Someone already had what they came for. I felt relief first, and that is what makes everything else worse. The kind of relief that spreads through your chest and loosens your shoulders when you think something is finally over. I remember sitting on my bed that night, shoes still on, phone in my hand, telling myself it was done, and I was safe and I could stop replaying it. The date had been uncomfortable in a quiet way. Not loud enough to justify panic. Not obvious enough to explain to anyone else. Just wrong. When I got home, I blocked him unmatched and let myself breathe for the first time in hours. I thought that was the end of it. I did not know it had already moved past me. I matched with him on a random evening when I was half watching something and half scrolling. His profile looked clean, normal, nothing intense. His messages were polite, but slightly formal, like he was careful with words. I liked that at first. It felt respectful. We talked for about a week before meeting. Nothing deep. He asked about my job, my routine, what I did when I felt unsafe on dates. That question stood out, but I assumed he was just trying to be considerate. I told him I shared my location with friends and trusted my instincts. He said that was smart. We met at a mid-sized cafe near a transit hub. Lots of windows. Lots of people coming and going. I chose it on purpose because it felt visible. He arrived early and picked a table with his back to the wall. When I sat down, I noticed he'd see the entire room without turning his head. I told myself I was overthinking. The conversation started fine. Then it slowly shifted into something else. He asked questions that felt like checklists. What made me uncomfortable? How I reacted to pressure? Whether I ever froze in stressful situations? Each question on its own was not alarming. Together, they felt like an assessment. I tried steering things back to lighter topics. He followed for a minute, then circled back. Every time I hesitated before answering, he waited, not impatient, attentive, like he was watching the hesitation itself. I started feeling boxed in, not physically, mentally, like every reaction was being measured. When I laughed something off, he nodded. When I changed posture, his eyes tracked it. He barely talked about himself at all. Halfway through, I checked my phone and saw messages from a friend asking if I was okay. I had not texted her yet, but I always do midway through dates. I realized I had forgotten. That alone made my stomach drop. I excused myself to the restroom just to breathe. I stared at myself in the mirror and felt that familiar internal argument start. Nothing bad has happened. You are in public. Do not make a big deal out of nothing. I decided I would end the date early. When I came back, he asked if everything was all right. I said I was tired and needed to go. He accepted it immediately. No pushback. No disappointment. That almost made it worse. Outside, the air felt like relief. I walked away fast and did not look back. Once I was far enough, I sent my friend a long message explaining everything. She told me I did the right thing. I believed her. When I got home, I blocked him on the app. Unmatched, gone. I sat there feeling shaky, but proud of myself for trusting my instincts. I thought that was the end of my involvement. The next morning, I opened the app out of habit. It logged me out. At first, I thought it was a glitch. I tried signing back in. Error. I reset my password. Nothing. I checked my email and found a message from the app support team. It said my account had been removed due to a safety-related resolution. It said no further action was required on my part. It said offline escalation had already been completed. Offline escalation. I read it 3 times trying to understand what that meant. I had not reported anything. I had not contacted support. I had just blocked him and gone to sleep. I replied asking what escalation meant. The response came hours later. It was vague. It said the matter had been reviewed and addressed according to protocol. It said details could not be shared. It said my account would remain removed. I felt cold all over. I asked if there was a report against me. They said they could not confirm or deny specifics. They said the decision was final. They thanked me for understanding. I did not understand anything. I started replaying the date in my head, looking for the moment where something could have been twisted. Every pause, every nervous laugh, every time I hesitated before answering. I wondered what he had submitted, what he had framed, what narrative had already been decided without me. I reached out to a friend who worked in tech. She said some apps had systems where certain reports triggered external processes. Not police, not legal necessarily, but third-party safety networks. She said if someone filed something framed as serious enough, the app might step aside and let other systems take over. Systems I would never see. Over the next few days, small things started happening that made my chest tighten. A coworker asked me if everything was okay because someone had called the office asking general questions about workplace safety. My building manager sent an email reminding residents about reporting suspicious behavior. Nothing named me directly, but everything felt adjacent. I tried making a new account on the app. It was blocked instantly. Device restricted. I tried a different email. Same result. I realized I was not just removed, I was flagged. I searched his name online. Not much came up. Then I searched a username he had used in one of his messages. That led me to a forum for people who specialized in escalation consulting. Language about risk assessment, pattern recognition, preemptive action. The posts talked about identifying threats early and routing concerns through appropriate channels before incidents occurred. I felt sick reading it. One post mentioned dating apps as data sources. Another mentioned interviews conducted in casual environments. Another talked about using behavioral cues to justify escalation without direct incidents. It all clicked together in a way that made my hands shake. I had not been on a date. I had been part of a process. I never got to see the report. I never got to respond to it. I never got to explain how uncomfortable I felt, how I left early, how I blocked him. Whatever was submitted happened fast and quietly, and by the time I knew about it, it was already considered resolved. Offline. I contacted the app again, asking what systems were involved. They replied with a copy-pasted response about user safety and partnerships. They suggested I take a break from online dating. That sentence felt insulting in a way I could not explain. Weeks passed. Nothing dramatic happened. No one showed up at my door. No official accusation was made, but the sense of being watched did not go away. I wondered who had my name now. What notes existed somewhere. What boxes had been checked about me without my input. I stopped using apps entirely. Not because I wanted to, but because I did not feel welcome in spaces I could be quietly removed from without explanation. Sometimes I think about that first feeling of relief. How sure I was that blocking him meant control. How wrong I was. The decision had already been made somewhere else. Nothing illegal happened. Nothing provable. No one hurt me. But something was decided about me without my consent, and I was never invited into that decision. The scariest part was realizing I did not need to do anything wrong to be handled. I just needed to be evaluated by someone who knew how to escalate quietly.